You maybe probably can tell the voice is a little bit different. I've gotten a few comments about that this week. Lost my voice last week, and to be honest, maybe I'm a little concerned that I permanently damaged my vocal cords because my voice should have recovered by now, and it has not. Decidedly not. But you're gonna have to listen to the new, instead of the sultry tones, the gravelly tones of my voice, as we're going to be launching into the next Face Your Fears podcast. It's the end. We're coming close to the end of the year, and well, with the happy guy around the corner, we decided to put together our wish list for Phobies and maybe a few grievances along the way. So Karst is with me. We're gonna switch gears here. How you doing there,
Hey,
Karst?
doing good. Hey, you got a little gift there, I see.
Yes, I do. I didn't actually look at these. I got plus 7 days of the 50% boost. Come back tomorrow for a free
Yeah.
gift. We, of course, have our 12 days of Christmas, which I do appreciate that the team does every year and does do these things periodically. But I will say that well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. It will, I guess it'll bleed into the rest of our discussion, I think, if I get too far ahead of myself.
You can start there. We can just play it by ear.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is going to kind of play it by ear, I think. So let me pull this up because there is a visual aid to set the stage for the context here. And that is, Karst had identified this to me offline because I actually had missed this comment. And for the record, I'm a content affiliate. Karst, you're on associated with the team as well. Give people that preface before we get into things. And the other explanation that I'll put out at the front is I'm pulling up these quotes from Eric Cake. These were stated in the official Phobies Discord. If you're looking for a link for that, you can find it in game, or we'll put it in the description or something later. But I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. We're not trying to be like, oh, well, the devs said this, so it has to be this. It's like, look, the reality of making large, and Phobies, regardless of whatever complaints we may levy at it or even say that the game is small, that's by comparison. Phobies is a large game affecting a lot of people, players, devs, etc. And as a result, there are things that I guess it boils down to this, without getting too wordy. Be cautious about your expectations. Just because something is said it's going to happen or promises made doesn't mean that that necessarily is going to happen, because it's life. Things will change as the reality around it changes. So with that out of the way, the two quotes here are from Eric Cake. I'm not sure when the next balance patch will be at this point. This is from towards the end of November. There's a lot of high priority work being scheduled right now. Then in the same day, looks like actually preceded it, so maybe I should have flipped these, but Karst actually made a comment, now it's time for you to upgrade the Phobies quality of life, and the response from Eric Cake is working on it. And that's actually music to my ears. So Karst, is there any other background for this that you'd want to throw in? Like, what prompted this, if you recall? It's going back a little bit.
I think the greater context was we were talking about the new update, which gave us acceleration as a new feature, which I think is a fantastic feature.
Absolutely.
It's pretty much a Wales only feature, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, I'd
It's
agree.
very coffee expensive. Have you looked at it all on your account?
I've looked at it a little bit. I didn't see, for example, or try how much I could do. You know, I have Puff, for example, so I should probably switch so people can see this.
Yeah, so my Smother, for example, to take it from level 11 to level 20 is 4,000 coffee.
For me to get it to level 1 to level 12 is just under 1,100.
So the way it works is it's per duplicate card that the coffee is replacing.
Right. which makes
So
sense.
as we know, as phobies go up in level, you need more dupes, so the cost increases per level. Um, the only thing I'm fine with it costing a lot, even if it's just for a way for them to make money and whales to use it. I think it's great that at least for the big spenders who drop like $1,000 every update and get all the phobies, they might be willing to drop another $1,000 and get all their phobies up to a playable level, and we get to see them sooner than 6 months of waiting. So for me,
Absolutely.
it's a good change, even if I personally don't think I'm going to be using this because I can't afford it.
Yeah, I don't think this negatively impacts the game in any meaningful capacity. Like, look, you can make an argument that, well, this supports whales and, or maybe not supports, but this is clearly geared towards whales, as you said, and creating features that target that audience is not beneficial for the game as a whole. You could make that argument, but this doesn't take anything away from anyone else in the game. It's an ad entirely, and as in it's adding things, addition, not it's a commercial. And on top of that, if your concern is, oh, well, the whales are going to beat me because now they have stuff that's higher level, like, spoiler alert, they were going to do that anyway. Like, if they had a million levels on you, they were going to beat you with whatever phobia.
Right, and it's limited. It can only raise your phobia up to your average phobia level.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't get ahead with this. You can only catch up. So I really like the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
I also like how right now there's some people who sandbag on levels, and I like that it encourages them to level their phobies. And I've noticed a couple level sandbaggers already doing that. The greater context for this, I think, was I was talking with Eric Cake about working on quality of life, and Greg had mentioned one of the newer community managers along with Sandy. He said, I'm so happy y'all get this catch-up mechanic now. I hope it's the start of many awesome things to come from this partnership. And Eric Cake did respond with a nodding emoji to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the hopium that I'm on, at least, is that acceleration is the first of more things to come to address long-standing issues of the game. And I appreciate that when this update arrived, the Phobies team left the note of, this is something we know you've all been wanting for a long time.
Right.
You know, and there are other things we've all been wanting for a long time. So maybe we'll get more of those things.
Absolutely. And for anybody wondering, I absolutely did boost Karst volumes moments ago because I remembered that my volume was way higher and I had turned it down because we're getting drowned out by the game music. But I'll be editing this later and wondering, why did the volume jump to 1,000 decibels? Well, there you go. But more to the point, I absolutely agree. There have been things that have been lingering out there for a while now, and I don't think anybody's going to, we're going to run through the list of things that have kind of been on our pet peeve list that we're hoping, fingers crossed, will be resolved, hopefully in the new year and earlier rather than later. Although I could anticipate a lot of this being in the next annual anniversary, because that is the big day. It also gives them time between the last update and then to work on all this stuff while having the break for the holidays in the middle and not have to rush anything out. So personally, I would not expect anything to be deployed, nothing major before then. But who knows?
That's same here. I also think it's important to note, like, people will often look at changes and say, well, how hard is it? You just change a couple things in the code.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it this time and not me.
These things take testing, planning, visualization, sound effects. I mean, before we had that acceleration button there, that was where you could pay coffee to make up for experience points you were missing. So they didn't just have to add the acceleration feature, they had to remove the old system and reintegrate this new system with how things are working currently. And all those kinds of things take a lot of time and effort. So, my personal thing is, if every update if we could just get like a couple things addressed, I'd be super happy with that personally.
Absolutely. And it is something that bears repeating. It's very easy to crap on devs, especially if you don't have any concept of what the work involved is. And I think for anybody who is a grown adult and has worked a real job, we'll say, quote unquote, a real job, where you've been in an office and you've had to wonder, why is this thing taking forever? Or someone asks you who has no clue, why is this thing taking forever? Why wasn't this done yesterday? And you have to explain all of the steps that are involved in doing your job. Creating a game sounds awesome on the outside, but at the end of the day, it is a job. And like everything else, there are things that you need to do to complete said job.
Yep. A job that makes you feel stupid every day.
Yeah. So one question before we jump into things, Karst, you had mentioned that with respect to the accelerate mechanic, we'll call it a mechanic, I guess, or tool or feature, whatever, that because it only brings you up to your average collection level now, do you feel it would have been problematic if they allowed you to spend coffee to just push everything to the limit? Limit being like level 30.
I think only in the sense, if there's like some mega Kraken out there who's willing to dump a fortune to make everything level 30, even then, I don't even know if that matters, because I guess probably not, because we have Hoploy. He's already there, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So does it really matter if they allow someone to Hoploy it up? I think the only real issue I could see is this. It's that a new player could take like a key phobie, like Evo 3.0, for example, and spike it to, say, level 10. And then for a long time, they could just abuse that big level. All the other phobies are level 1. In their matches, their opponents are expecting level 1 stuff. Damn, here comes out this level 10 Evo 3.0. I could see that being like potentially problematic in some sense. But even then, I'm kind of okay with it and don't really care that much, I guess.
I think it would, to a degree, self-regulate, but it doesn't really. And I think this may segue into some of our complaints, but say you have a new person, they create, maybe not a new person, experienced player starts a new account because they just feel like it. There's a lot of people who smurf accounts, and they happen to crack Evo 3.0 in one of their first packs. And they do exactly what you're saying. They're like, oh, now I'm not going to go free to play. I'm going to put in money. And then 2 weeks later, they find themselves in Sum of All Fears 1 with a level whatever Evo 3.0 because they've been bodying everyone up to that point and ranking up incredibly fast. And everything else is crapola because they just leveled up too quick. And they now have a miserable time because their games are going to be terrible.
That's a good thought. I wonder if someone was willing to spend money and dump coffee to boost something like a Evo 3.0 early on, then they hit that wall of frustration. I wonder if that kind of person is more likely to quit out of frustration or put more money in since they were already willing to the first time.
Yeah, that's a level of psychological investigation that I can't really speak to. I go into games seemingly with a different goal and different psychology than most people, where it's, if I like the game, I know that I have this budget, I'm willing to put in this much money for the game, and I'll do my best to earn the remainder, whatever that happens to be. In order, like in Phobies, it would be, I put in my, like when I first started out, there was whatever getting started bundle plus something else. I think I put in $100, and then I ended up putting in another 100 several months later when some of the other deals came out. So let's say a total of $200. I haven't spent any more than that. And it's been multiple years now, or a couple of years now. I don't anticipate that I would beyond that. And that doesn't seem to be the normal way that people do stuff.
I think you got different kinds of spenders, right? And one thing like Phobies kind of struggles with is you have the free-to-play players, you have the dolphins, you have the whales, you have the krakens. And there's nothing really for krakens to do in Phobies, so if you net one, you're losing money there.
Yeah.
the free-to-play players don't get enough love. I think they pretty much nail the Dolphins between the subscription and the VIP pass. And whales seemed to be pretty happy overall. Aside from, I think acceleration fixes the main whale issue, which is whales would dump like $1,000, get these phobies, and be like, "That's great, but I still can't use them."
Yeah.
Without spending like an extraordinary, a cracking amount of money.
Right.
And so I think this like patches a big hole for whales, um, and yeah, closes that hole in a sense.
Yeah. For anybody who's confused by the terminology out there, you probably heard the term whales before when it comes to free-to-play games, where it's those individuals who are willing to spend a lot of money. And Krakens, of course, would be an extreme amount of money. And dolphins below whales, they'll put in some money, but not necessarily the exorbitant amounts. And then, of course, below that would be just true free-to-play players. And it's more of a spectrum than specific cutoff points for anybody curious. But I think that does lead into what, and I'm going to repeat this phrase throughout the entire discussion, but my biggest quality of life issue, and this bleeds into balance, this bleeds into UI, this bleeds into gameplay, this bleeds into literally every facet of the game, because it can't not bleed into it, and that's just the general economy. I know we had set out at the beginning that we were going to discuss our wish list and try and keep it to certain things, but for me, the biggest problems with Phobies are, and probably always will be, the influence of how the real world dollars impact the game. I don't want to say the game is free or pay to win, because we have tons of examples of people who are lower spenders but higher skill and winning more games, not just winning a game here and there, just straight up winning more games on average than somebody who spends money. But there's a ton of impacts of how punishing the Phobies economy can be.
Yeah, I look at it from a the perspective of a behavioralistic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The studies of you put a chicken in a box, there's a button it can peck, a little piece of corn comes down. How frequently does corn have to come down from a chute for the chicken to keep pecking that button, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the Phobies economy issue really is, in a nutshell, people are willing to peck the button for a while, but Phobies don't come down long enough, and so they stop pecking.
Yeah, eventually people give up. And at the end of the day, this is something that I've mentioned on many occasions in the past, that there is a Pokemon element to Phobies. Not just because it's pocket monsters and Phobie monsters, but the idea that you need to catch them all, or the desire to catch them all and collect these things. And so there's two parts of it. One is psychological, of I just want all the things. Okay, you want to collect them. Great. There's also the gameplay element of you kind of need a certain collection width or breadth before you can truly compete at certain levels. Because if you just straight up don't have certain game pieces or game mechanics tied to game pieces, like a push or a pull or a flyer or a whatever, you're just straight up at a disadvantage. Like, you're just worse off than somebody who has it.
Yep, that's definitely true.
And it's unfortunate, but that is the way that the pack system is set up. So I guess to put this into an actionable state, and feel free to suggest something else or disagree if you think that this would be problematic, I would like to see more of the monthly Phobies. As this is going to sound maybe insulting to people, especially if you're 100% free to play, but I want more frequent but cheaper options to straight up buy a Phobie and just even if it's on a rotation where it's like, this month you can buy whatever, in addition to, because they're not going to stop the monthly new one. They've been doing that for a while, and that's obviously going to continue. But take an existing Phobie, like this month it's Chuck, next month it's Sparky, and then the month after it's whatever.
Yes, I actually do want that. So like one thing that like drives me crazy is I think Phobies might be unique in the gacha world where there's no way to get at something consistently. In
Mhm.
most gacha games, especially the big ones, they have rotating character alters where after you do so many pulls, you are
Mhm.
guaranteed the character on the altar.
Right.
And, I don't know specifically if that's harmful or helpful to phobies, but I know that I've seen many people join this game and fall in love with a phobie and say, I want to play this phobie more than anything. And
100%.
they never get it.
Yeah.
Like like famously, there's a guy whose name who in the phobies Discord, and his name is Fire Ant My Love. And he's been playing the game for like 2 years, doesn't
Huh.
own Fire Ant.
Yikes.
He would
Yikes.
love to have Fire Ant
Yeah,
and
for
use it
sure.
every match. There's no way to make it happen, short of theoretically buying every single phobia in the game because it might be your last one, which by my
Mhm.
calculations recently, to buy every phobia in the game on average is going to cost you about $13,000 right now.
Yeah, I was preemptively wincing because I already knew the number, and it's I mean, look, I've spent a lot of money on idiot things. I bought a lot of dumb stuff over the years, but that was over the years. Like $13,000 in one shot is an enormous sticker shock. Huge.
Yeah, it is.
But I
It
guess keying
absolutely
off
is.
of go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say there are people willing to do it, but
Yeah,
it's not like 99% of people.
absolutely. But keying off of one of the things that you had mentioned there, so in my head, I'm picturing it could be real money. Well, it'll probably be coffee realistically, and then they make you buy the coffee because there is that psychological element of obfuscating the actual expenditure of real money, and that's not a phobies thing. Don't anybody take it personally. Like there's a reason every mobile game has currencies like this. It's a proven psychological fact that it like they hide the money that you're spending. That's not saying
Also
phobies.
legal stuff.
Yeah. So that's if this were to happen, it's not going to be this is buy the new phobia. It's $5. It's going to be whatever $5 worth of coffee is valued at the time. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But it sounded like, and this could be also in addition to that, you want a pity pack system, which for anybody who's confused by that, if you played well, you wouldn't be confused if you've played any of these games. But the idea is from other games that also have pack systems that say you open 10 packs today, there's no guarantee that you really get an ultra rare. And this would get complicated because of the ratios with the different packs. Most of the other games that do this, it's a singular pack. And you have this rarity that may upgrade to a higher one. But it's like you get this base rarity and this other base lower rarity in some quantity. And after X amount of opening, if you have not gotten the cool thing, you are guaranteed to get a cool thing. And a
Yep.
lot of people have suggested this idea for phobies. Go ahead, Cars.
No, I just said yup. I was just kind of doing a agreement. Go ahead.
Well, that was pretty much it. It sounded like that was more along the lines. Like, do you think it should have phobies should have both the pity bag system as well as the additional monthly phobia? I guess, for lack of a better way to put it.
Here's what I think would be cool.
Mhm.
It would be if every week it was a different ultra rare,
Okay.
and after you've opened so many dreadfuls, you're guaranteed that ultra rare. But when it becomes time, you can choose. You can either tap to get the ultra rare of the week, or you can roll random if you don't want that one, and you just happen to hit your thing. So you get a choice there. You can roll the dice and see what you get, or you could choose to get whoever's that phobia of the week, and that way, you're not forced into hoarding your stuff necessarily
Yeah.
to wait for your week. But if you want that guy, maybe that's the week you drop $100. I think before you had mentioned like $100 is enough for an ultra rare. Right now, you can buy an exclusive phobia every month for $100, and you get around 4,000 coffee, which I think is really cool with the new accelerate system. That
Absolutely.
4,000 coffee is about enough to make that new phobia you just bought useful.
Mhm.
which means, in my opinion, if you're a spender, the exclusive offer is now actually worth buying. Whereas
Yes.
before, I was like, why would I spend $100 on a level 1 phobie?
Yeah.
$100 and then I
6 months
wait
from
six
now, it's a
months.
great investment.
Exactly. And that's not necessarily false, but I'm just not willing to do that. I don't even
Yeah.
put money into my that much money into my 401k. So I'm not going to invest in a phobie for 6 months or
Yeah,
longer.
yeah. It's not quite the same
So
investment. So we
I
got
think
some
like
comments. Oh, good.
every 5 dreadfuls,
Mm,
you're guaranteed an ultra rare is a good amount, and that would lower it. So I'd say before it's like $13,000 for a full collection.
mm.
Technically, we have to be sensitive to this. Financially, that would mean it would go down to about $5,000 for a full Phobies collection.
Right,
So that would mean that every time the devs net a whale, they're going to get $7,000 less than their current system.
right.
And the question of the day is, which one gets them more money, right?
And that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Well, in addition to the comments from chat, but we'll get to that momentarily. Uh, it is difficult without information that we simply don't have this information, and we never will, because this is first party stuff. They're never going to release this sort of thing. Are the dolphins, the whales, the krakens, or even, if I don't remember if there's a level between true free to play and dolphins, but like assuming there's one there, like which of these or all of these, which groupings are the primary players of Phobies? And even beyond that, like let's say it is dolphins or it is whales. How many of them are willing to continue to spend? Because are they all like me, where it's I put in my money, I'm not putting in anymore. You got my X number of dollars when I started. I'm not spending any more money, regardless of what you do. So I would be probably classified as a dolphin personally, but am I really, if now I'm true free to play? There's a lot of factors here that they are the only ones who are going to have the metrics and the true data to be able to make an informed decision on. And to your point, yeah, they are. It's not that they're likely to lose money, but it is entirely possible that they lose money over the long haul, even if they quote unquote keep more players in the ecosystem, because it is more free to play friendly. Because eventually people will get enough coffee to trigger this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Um, I don't have the answer to it, but I think all the points you raise are the correct ones to be concerned about.
Right.
Um, I think like there are two kinds of spenders that tend to happen that are not big nets in the long run. One is the person who gets into the game, drop a load of cash at the start, and they lose interest and move on like in a couple months.
Right.
And the other is the person who continually puts in a small amount of money every month, for like the VIP pass and subscription, for example. A lot of people have like their monthly budget, and they just
Yeah.
keep putting in the monthly budget. That's what I do, and I think that's pretty common for like the mid-level spenders that I've known through games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I think a pity system just helps keep all those people. It helps them stick around longer.
And I think over time, the reality is, and this is a simple number crunching thing, and the data is there to figure out, okay, well, if we did a pity pack system, let's say only based on dreadfuls, like you were suggesting, and it's 5 dreadfuls, it's 10 dreadfuls, it's 55 dreadful, pick a number. The equation can be built because we know the percentage chance of getting a given phobie, and we know how many phobies there are. Like this can be solved for. I'm not going to say it's a simple equation that I'm going to do in my head, because the rule is never do math on stream, but it can be solved for by us. This is not one of those things that we need their information for. What we need their information for is, okay, well, does that translate into more dollars and cents or less?
Yep.
And it's easy for everyone, and this is the devil's advocate part of this discussion, is it's easy for everyone like us on the outside to go, yeah, duh, there's going to be more people in the game because they're getting that carrot. It's not just chasing the carrot. Eventually, you have to get the carrot every once in a while, or you lose interest, like you were describing earlier. But if that results in the company going under because they can't keep the lights on, nobody gets their carrot because the game's done for. And at the end of the day, they are a business. They got to make money.
Absolutely. I do think like this kind of segues into major Christmas wish list for myself is the tier cap removal.
No. Before we jump into that, Carson, I just want to throw a couple comments for the last discussion, then we can go into the tiers. So from chat, Noah's saying never played Phobies, but showed up in time for pack distribution talks, so I'm invested now. And Luffy, thank you again for the sub. Bad luck protection seems standard considering gacha games are so big, but that's based on systems of uncrafting cards, which we didn't comment on, to create new ones. Yeah, that is absolutely true. Goth My Soul, who is new to the stream. I'm level 30 in Phobies, and I played all the time without donation, but I realized I lacked Phobies, a variety of Phobies. All I had was either Phobies that hit or Phobies that shoot, no variety. So you bought 3 Dreadfuls and got a lot of new Phobies, came much easier. That's kind of where we're going with it, Goth, is that you do need to give people the cool toys or give them access to it. I mean, hell, if they did a free rotation, which maybe is another idea for later, of just like, yeah, this week everybody gets this Phobie. Have fun. And then they take it away at the end of the time period. But, sorry, I just want to get...
Clash Royale does that.
What was that?
Clash Royale does that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, League has been doing it for years. Dota has everything free, but, like, League has their free rotation and that sort of thing, so... Before I cut you off and shifted us, pulling us backwards as always, you were talking about the tier caps.
Well, actually, I have one more question for you. Yeah. I noticed in your account you have like 38,000 coffee right now, right?
Yeah.
Why haven't you spent it?
I usually, like, the honest reasons I usually save them to do bigger pack opening videos. So it's like, as a creator, it's like, if I opened 40,000 coffee, let's see what I got. That's more impressive than if I opened like one Dreadful every once in a blue moon.
Okay, because right now I have 10,000 coffee.
Yeah.
And I haven't spent it because I'm happier having it and imagining what I could get with it than what I think will actually happen
before it becomes the disappointment in your hand.
That's pretty much how I feel. It's because I had spent last update. Okay, check this out. This last update spent 12,000 coffee, 130,000 tiers. I got 1 common, 1 uncommon, 1 rare, 1 ultra rare, and half a stress level. The stress level part might be the most depressing. I don't know if it's the most depressing, but it is very depressing. I'll say this. It's a two-sided coin. Yeah. The depressing part is like, wow, that's hardly any progress. But I also use that to tell new players. They will look at someone who's like stress level 120 and say, wow, this game's really... These guys are whales. Yeah. That's why they're so high up. And I think something that new players don't understand is spending doesn't give you levels very easily. You have to really spend a lot to get levels from coffee purchases. Absolutely. You get levels from grinding, which is something that I think helps the argument that Phobies is not really a super pay-to-win game. If you're super high level, it's because you've been logging in every day and playing consistently for the most part. Yeah. Hoploy, the only reason he's max level is because he did the daily triple for like almost 3 years.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that does not surprise me now that you say it. He told me, because I asked him once, I said, like, how much is it for you to get a level? And he said he estimated it was like something like $10,000 a stress level. And he said, that's stupid, I'm not doing that. So he just grinded the daily triple. He didn't spend for levels. He did something that anyone could do for $10 a month. When Hoploy says that it's too expensive, I think that's making a statement in and of itself. Yeah, right? I mean, there's an argument of, it's just inefficient expenditure, but there's also like, that's just like a lot of dollars.
It is a lot. And levels, people complain about levels, but they're not that important. Like, I'm
Mm,
not going to spend 10 grand to get +1 level on all my phobies or something like that, you
get out of
know?
here.
Wouldn't even
Not
spend
especially
1,000
not
for
at that
+1.
point, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
This leads into that tier cap
yeah, good.
conversation. And like the tier cap is one of the most requested tier cap removal is one of the most requested features by the community.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people had this attitude of, well, if people could grind tiers, then they could just over level everyone. No, I just spent 130,000 tiers and I didn't even get one stress level for who I am in the game. At
Because of the
some
way it
point,
scales, you plateau past a certain point.
yes,
Like there's just no
plateau
way.
hard.
Yeah, you just can't avoid it. It's you cannot. Well, it's not that you can't, but it would be. Let's put it this way: it would be extremely unhealthy for you to break the plateau.
Yep,
Like
exactly. And people
physically
talk about,
unhealthy. Not, oh my God, you're obsessed. No, it's like, dude, you need to go to the hospital and get an IV and stop pooping in your socks because, like, stop.
the IV and so you can play more phobies.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
yeah. Somebody take that guy's phone away.
Here's the thing. It's not
Yeah.
good for phobies either. Because
Yeah.
I will tell you, I've recorded over 1,000,000 tiers of my own packs.
Mhm.
Over 1,000,000 tiers. And I've gotten 0 ultra rares from them.
Really?
A
I mean,
million
it
tiers
does.
and
I
0
know it
ultra
does
rares.
happen. Like, people love to say, oh,
It
I got this
does.
from a Tears pack, but
But no one's my point is, yeah, it'll happen. No one is grinding the Phobies collection on tiers. So
oh, yeah.
it's not good for maxing levels. Tiers aren't good for getting new phobies after the certain point. So what's the cap really doing? It's, in my opinion, only thing I can really justify is
Mhm.
a gate to try and force people to spend money on the subscription.
I would say that. So I have a different opinion of why it exists, but it is like
Hey,
wildly
go.
different and it like a different direction. Like we're not on the same plane, sort of thing. But to I guess rebut the point is that the subscription wasn't always there. Like we started without it, and
Was it added like in the first month? Because I started
I
playing
I don't think it was that
right
early,
after the
was
first
it?
update.
I'd have to go back and look now. I thought it was later, like post full disclosure.
What's I started playing right after full disclosure,
Okay.
so
That was a
I
few
don't know
months
the
after
history.
the initial
It's like
release. But the problem
it's
with
like 3 or 4
that
months
line
in.
of argumentation is there's no world in which they weren't already planning the subscription to begin with. So like
Yep.
it doesn't really fit the argument. What I've always maintained as the reason is it's an anti-botting tool because I could not justify any other reason. Now, caps have been around for a long time, but they were old, like 20 aughts mobile game thing where it's like, if we don't prevent people and gate them, they will just play a ton and burn out on the game and then not spend any money. But if we gate them, then it'll force them to spend money. And I also think there were anti-botting measures because otherwise, especially then, the detection probably wasn't as good. So that's my only other
Yeah.
argument as to why they exist.
Phobies already has bots though. Um,
Mm.
and they farm the coffee, right? I guess I would say this. I'm not opposed or I'm not in favor of removing the coffee cap of 100 coffee a day because I do understand that bot limit and you wouldn't want someone botting to bot up like 100,000 coffee
Hmm.
in a couple weeks or a month or whatever how long that takes for a bot to do, and then they're selling accounts. I understand that. I can
Yeah.
understand that cap staying in place for that reason. And to hit the cap, you have to play 20 matches in a day. In my 3 years of playing, I've only hit the cap twice when I just really was into the game. Um, so it's not something that's going to happen a lot. That Luffy says, "Can you still not surrender without losing currency?" That is correct. The game still punishes you for surrendering matches. That's also on my list of things to
Yeah, I
change.
figured we'd get there. But on this end, I do think there is a small concern. Like, if we assume that it is a bot prevention measure,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because to your point, you did 1,000,000 tiers and
Yeah.
you still didn't really meaningfully get anything. If that is true, how many tiers could a bot farm if a bot could farm tiers? Like,
It's like how much wood could a woodchuck chuck?
yeah,
A
that's it.
woodchuck
That's what I
chuck
was
wood?
going for. Like, in all seriousness, like, how, I don't know off the top of my head the math for, like, in a day, in a week, in a month, and we have to factor in, like, the devs clearly would have something to try and detect it. Somebody who's playing for thousands of hours straight is clearly not a human, right? Like, with no
Right.
stopping. So
There's also
go
win
ahead.
rate. The thing
Yeah.
is, like I've talked with Talarian and Eric Cake and Schmidt about this, I think, in the Ask Devs chat. Phobies is too complex of a game to do machine learning on. There's too much variation in maps. There's too much variation in Phobies played. For the people who are botting in Phobies, they all have win rates around 20%. Oh, but that reminds me of an exploit that I learned about that I wasn't aware of.
Oh, yeah.
I can't confirm this. This is secondhand knowledge, but 3 different people have said it to me, so I'm going to treat it as though it's true.
Well, that's how the internet works.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely not the same
When you
person
play-
3 times.
When you play against bots,
Uh-huh.
even when you lose, you get 5 coffee.
As in, like,
bots,
the official bots, you're saying.
Yes. And so
Oh.
part of the exploit with the bots is they don't care if they keep losing. Eventually, they lose hard enough that they face the bots, which is where they get the 5 coffee a match from, even if they're just like doing nothing through the bot in each match.
Interesting. Well, that would be another reason to not have the coffee limit lifted. But I wish, at the end of the day, this is something also that is going to be on my wish list that we'll probably get to, is I just want more communication from the devs. But
Yep.
I would love to know the why. Why does this? And to be honest, if I'm, and this is 100% wild speculation sort of thing, Smoking Gun is not a large organization, right? What if they had to justify to an investor to get things off the ground? We will implement these controls to ensure that players can't do this to exploit the system, and therefore it will force them to spend XYZ, and it just comes down to number crunching. I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's wild speculation. So
That's a reasonable take, because Smoking Gun Interactive does have a parent company that owns it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can find it.
Whenever you pull it up, we can come back to it. But
In September of 2022, Smoking Gun Interactive was acquired by Keyword Studios.
Keyword Studio. Okay, yeah. This is ringing a bell.
So I think some good juice there, and I think it could also be possibly be preventative of positive changes to Phobies. Like, I think the thing that always makes me the most upset is people would say Phobies devs suck, and
to be fair, everybody says that about every game. It doesn't matter the game. Someone's going to go, those guys suck. And it's like,
right.
My brother in Christ, that is not true. Sometimes it is.
The devs don't get to make a single decision about how this game's going. You know?
Yeah.
There's, like, above the devs, there are the people running the game, like the designer, the
Everybody
producer,
has a boss at the end of the day.
Management, the CEO of the company. And when you have a flagship title for your company, like Phobies, any change that's impacting the revenue is going to have to go up all of those channels and get a thumbs up. And if there's a parent company like Keyword Studios, there's a good chance you get approval from them too. Like, there's so many layers that you have to survive for a single idea that could impact the economy of Phobies.
Exactly. I told you it was all going to
If
come back
any
to
of
the
those
economy.
players say no, sorry, say again.
I said I told you it was going to always come back to the economy, and it's going to keep coming back
Yeah.
to it. But, yeah, I 100% agree, and that's something worth underscoring is that there is a bureaucracy.
Yep. And I wish people would respect that more. That, the people who work on this game
Mhm.
are doing their best, and they want what's best for the game, and they want to give us the things they want, more or less, the reasonable requests we make at least.
Yeah,
They aren't the ones that make the decisions.
right. I will
Be
say,
nice.
in the crazy internet person's defense, which is we're already off on the right foot. To a degree, it's not their problem. To a degree, it is.
Yeah.
If I want thing, I mean, it's obviously my right to want whatever the hell I want. But I would, as me personally, I would hope these people would recognize the limitations of the wanting. But at the same time, making the request is, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but like I want to put it out there that we're not saying like, oh, you can't ever ask for anything ever because it's hard on the devs. Like, no, you can make a request, but like be reasonable about it, because the reality is they can't just will it into existence. It can't just happen because they want
Right. It's like the equivalent of, and I don't mean to be insulting to anyone here, but it's like the equivalent of when you call customer service at a company and you're like complaining about a company policy. That's nice. The customer service person you're talking to has no ability to change that company policy. They can't help
Exactly.
you with that.
Right.
Now a huge difference here in that parallel is the devs for Phobies are not customer service people. They talk to the community because they love the community and love the game. They don't have to be doing this, and I feel like that's something that really gets missed a lot. That in most games, you don't get to talk to anyone from the company at all. The fact that we have a few voices there that say hi and give us some insights is, people should be more grateful for that, I think. I have a lot of
Absolutely.
gratitude for that.
I've had conversations with other devs recently, and it's interesting. Like, without getting into it, I know you had another wish list thing that you wanted to get to, but this one's kind of going to segue with this anecdote. Maybe even above and beyond the economy is I want additional communication from them. I almost don't care how it's communicated or even how often, but we get virtually zero insight into the hows and the whys of many things. Now, this is not to knock Eric Cake or Talarian or like anybody who's ever on the Phobie side of things communicated and volunteered information, because that it's definitely appreciated, but there needs to be more regular communication. And part of what brought it to the forefront again for me, it kind of always is, but I mentioned earlier my voice is messed up because of PAX. PAX Unplugged is a analog. It's a tabletop gaming convention as compared to like PAX West, where it's primarily supposed to be video games. I had the opportunity to sit down and interview a bunch of devs, and not just in speaking with me, but in speaking to, like, I'm standing at their booth waiting for a turn to be like, hey, I'm Chomp. I represent Random's Thoughts. I'm interested in talking about your game. Do you have a few minutes? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm watching them interact with other people and listening to their conversations as best I can on a very noisy exhibition floor. And I got to be honest, like, some of these devs are incredibly candid with the things that they are willing to volunteer about their economic models for their game, for the development cycles and how they came to certain conclusions for this game, how their relationships with physical retailers for their game. Now, I'm not asking the Phobies devs to go to that degree, because to be honest, I was kind of taken aback. But there's got to be a middle ground between ghosting us and that.
Yeah. Well, wait, why were you taken aback?
Well, because I'll be honest, most devs take the Phobies approach. It does not logically
Yeah.
make sense to open up. Like I'm asking the Phobies devs to do it. But if I were in their shoes, that's dumb. Why would you do that? There's no benefit to that other than some feel goods among the community that may or may not translate into some kind of tangible benefit, either through customer, if you call customer loyalty tangible, but customer loyalty or expenditures, because it's, say the Phobies team makes a promise for XYZ, and then they fulfill that promise. Then they make another promise, and the players can say, well, they did it last time. I can trust they're going to do it this time, so I will spend money. There is the risk that you make a promise, you make a statement, and you end up upsetting people more than if you had just said nothing. Like the baseline of keeping everything close to the chest is quote unquote safer. And to be honest, for the last 30, almost 40 years of me looking at stuff, that's how most of these companies have operated.
I think there's some truth to it, but I think there's a limit. It's like if your wife asks you, "Did you get me a present?" and you say, "Ooh, I'm not telling." Well, you could say I'm not telling, and she's gonna think, okay, maybe there's a gift there. Well, if you do that for like 6 months, at some point she's gonna be like, okay, what the hell?
Is it there or is it not?
You gotta tell me at some point.
Schrodinger's gift.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most of the community is at the point where they were like, okay, nothing's happening. You guys aren't going to do anything. And this acceleration update, I think, has renewed a lot of hope with people because they saw a concern get addressed. When previously, I can't remember the last time we had a concern addressed in some way about how the game works.
Probably the balance patches, to be honest.
Balance patches, yup. Those were big ones. But again, that was, how hard was that? How dire was the community? We went over a year without a balance patch before they gave us one.
Something that you had said sparked this in my mind, and you'll have to correct me if this is not where you were going with it, but I do think if they're going to take the line of radio silence or near radio silence, they do need to show us if they're not going to tell us. So if we got no communication, but every month there was at least a minor update along the lines of the acceleration thing, or minor balance patch, or like a changing of I guess the maps would be a balance patch, but like you get the idea. Something that is like they are clearly tinkering with things. I think that would go a long way in lieu of direct communication. I would love both, but if it's small team problems, we got to pick one. All right, then just smaller updates. Don't wait until the 1 year anniversary to drop 80,000 on us.
Yeah, right. And in that vein, I wish we had a roadmap to set expectations.
I've asked for that 3 years now.
I think, well, especially like, I feel like the roadmap, even if it's very vague, helps in the sense that it helps people invest. A top question that I get from new players is this game still alive? Is it still getting updates? And I can always tell them, we tend to get updates every 4 months, but I can't tell them the next update is here because I don't know that for certain.
There's something about... Oh, God. Finish your thought.
No. I think you're going to carry the thought. Go with it.
Well, maybe not. I think there is something within the general gaming, just generally in gaming right now, that the way marketing works is kind of insane. For example, I play Star Wars Unlimited, and it's one of the other games that I produce content for. They just released a set last month, like literally a month ago. They are now previewing the set that's coming out in 2 months, and they're going to continue previewing it from now until then. Point being is that when you get new players that come in and go, is this game dead? It is not because they don't see a plethora of content or they don't see players. It's because I think a lot of people are now psychologically conditioned to expect there is something screaming at you all the time. Like, hey, there's this new thing coming. Did you know there's a thing coming? There's a thing coming. There's a thing coming.
Oh, yeah. This is actually perfect because I know you do fighting game stuff too.
Yeah.
You're familiar with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
Yes.
Okay, that game bombed hugely, right? And it was such a big bomb that it never even made it to EVO, the biggest fighting game tournament in the world every year for those who don't know.
It's a big yikes
and
moment.
As soon as Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was announced to not be at EVO, rumored because Marvel didn't want it there because they were so embarrassed by the product kind of thing, everyone everywhere just said, dead game. Dead game. This game's dead now. It didn't matter how many people were playing it. It didn't matter how much fun it was. Once it was clear that the game's competitive future was shut down and that they'd be putting the kibosh on new updates, dead game.
Yep. And a game is only truly dead when people stop. Like, you can't load up the game, pull out the game, whatever it happens to be, and play it with someone. But something like that does immediately kill a game because a ton of people are like, you go from whatever the number is immediately halved or more because people will just give up and go, well, I'm not going to be able to play. Then the remaining people have a more difficult time finding a game to play and it spirals down the toilet.
I have a game that I've been playing for like 30 years and it's never gotten DLC, a balance patch or anything. And I still love it. It's called chess.
But you know what? You can probably walk into a lot of places and like a place where you would be able to play chess and find people to play chess.
Right. I know. Isn't that strange how that's so different?
I mean, I do make that argument all the time when it comes to balance discussions for Phobies, but that we'll digress on that in probably several podcasts. But to this end, I like to circle back to the original point. Roadmaps, I do think we need, and generally communication, I think it would behoove Phobies to have something there. And to me, because I always bring this up and I haven't yet, it needs to be in the game. I don't know anymore like what the ratio of active players to people in the Discord. Like, we can look at the number of people in Discord and then guesstimate based on the latter. But generally speaking, it's usually there's way more people that are involved with the game, hyper casual to hyper competitive and invested, to people that are actually interacting with the social media platforms. That's why it's always a self-selection problem for people that are in Discord, on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever, for a given thing. Whatever they do. True. Yeah, whatever they do needs to get posted or directly linked in the game so that as soon as you log in, it's like, hey, did you know that all this shit is happening? Don't post it on Discord or your forums. Like, no one is looking there. No one that's not already going to know about it is not looking there. And the people who aren't looking for it are the ones you need. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't understand it personally because they have an in-game announcement system. It gets used for map changes. It gets used for sales sometimes. It gets used for patch notes and stuff like that sometimes. We had 2 community challenges, right, that were put forth by the community managers. One was to get the Dead or Alive trailer to 3,000 likes.
Yeah.
If the community could do that, we would all get 100 coffee. I think it started at 1,800. This was like over a month ago. It's now at 2,500, so maybe like 700. But it was posted on the Discord. It was posted by content creators like yourself. Maybe some other social media outlets. But why wasn't it posted in the game announcements? Like, why not post it there? How many players would just tap the button to go give it a quick like? We'd hit that goal. They would get their algorithm boost. Everyone's happy.
And before anybody says it, they 100% already accounted for the fact of giving away the coffee. There is zero chance that they said, oh, well, if we only post it here, then we won't have to give out the 100 coffee. There's no way that happened. I refuse to believe that happened.
Yeah.
It just feels like an oversight.
Yep. Same, and then we had the community challenge to do, I think it was 1 billion damage with undead during the undead event.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and we did meet that goal. We get to, just to, clear the air there. Everyone got 200 coffee. Very cool. Very cool initiative. Again, why not post that as an announcement in game? Like there's that lack of communication there.
It would have been cool to have like a live counter on it. I'm sure that would be programmatically problematic, but like undead damage counter and then just have it ticking up on the main screen or something like.
That'd be very cool.
Or even like yesterday's total. Like if you can't have it sync all of this data because it would be too much flying around to try and do it, then that's fine. Just say, as of yesterday, we have this many and you need this much more to go. Like, because then that's also a psychological incentive to like, oh, well, what if I just do a little bit more in game? Because otherwise it's just an esoteric number. Like, how do you, I don't have any idea whether we're at 10,000 damage or we're at 999 million. Like, I have no idea.
Well, for the Discord, Greg did give us an update or two, I believe. So he did help in that regard.
Right.
Of course, it'd be better if it was just integrated into the game, so he didn't have to do that.
Exactly. And I do think this does cycle back to the usual refrain of small team, which I understand. But there are things like this that I always harp on. Balance is not the most important thing in games. New players is. And hitting now, while the billion damage thing is clearly a player retention gimmick, it's like if you're not playing the game, you're not like telling a new player, hey, come help us do 1 billion undead damage. Like that means nothing to them. Nobody's going to pick up a game because of that. The trailer though is clearly they want the existing people to go share that with their friends and family that are not playing the game. Be like, look how cool this is. But if the people who are most likely to like maybe show it to their spouse, because it's like, hey, this is that game that I play every once in a while that you watch me sometimes, and you're like, what's that? Well, look at, they just did an update. That player is probably not hanging out in Discord because they're playing once or twice a week while they're pooping. Hopefully not poop socking like the guy we were talking about earlier, but that player needs the in-game announcement.
Yep, I agree. Most people have no idea about any of the stuff we're talking about,
Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing that I've said with other games, and this is also true with Phobies, is most people don't know what the hell a Phobies is. They just literally don't know it exists. So like, and this is going to sound crazy to anybody listening to this podcast on YouTube or wherever. By the way, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of crap, because people don't know unless the algorithm does it. It's the same thing. They don't know what the hell a Phobies is, and they don't know that they don't know what a Phobies is. Like they have no concept of it even existing. And for the people that do, that are only like casually invested, any hurdle, and again, this is the part that's going to sound insane to people listening to this podcast, because if you are listening to this, you're already probably in the top 1% of Phobies players in the sense of how invested you are. I can tell you by my own metrics, the vast majority of Phobies players do not watch my content. So like, you're already like in that upper echelon. All those other people, it's a very low barrier to click a link and watch a video or listen to it in the background or share the trailer. But that is a hurdle, and any hurdle we can remove by like, oh, well, by the way, you got to join our Discord to do it. All right, I'll do that later. And then guess what? You're going to forget by the end of work. You're going to forget by the end of the meal or the phone call you're on or whatever.
Or you just won't do it. I was playing, I had finally, like 6 months ago, I finally gave in and downloaded Genshin Impact because it's such a huge game. I have friends who play. I thought, okay, I'm going to give this game a try.
Yeah.
And right when you go in, to play Genshin Impact, you have to make an account with Hoyoverse, independent of your machine.
Yeah.
Because they want you integrated into their system. I just uninstalled it right there. I was like, I don't even care. I was curious. but now I have to make a second account and probably go verify it. And I thought, I don't really care. I'm just going to do something else.
And we're talking like, Cars, you are not like, I can't think of the word. I'm drawing a blank on the word I want to use, but like,
I don't
you
have a
are
casual
familiar with
mindset.
technology. You played a
Yeah.
game
Oh,
or
yeah.
two in your life.
Right. Well, I also hate barriers, you know?
Yeah. There's no anything, and again, I'm just stressing this because people just don't believe this. But trust me, the silliest things are going to make somebody go, yeah, you know what? I don't care. Because
Yeah.
for most people, like, we're here doing a podcast. We obviously love Phobies. We are into Phobies. For most people, it's their Tuesday. Like, they just play the game every once in a blue moon. And maybe they'll put in $5, maybe they won't. The way I always describe it to people is, think about the games that you play maybe once in a blue moon with your friends, if that. Like, you go over to their place and they happen to have it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you should go download this," and like, you don't click with it, or you don't, so you don't care. But they're rabid about telling you all of the updates and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That you got to think like, oh, you are that person just for Phobies, where you are not as invested as other people in Phobies, so you just don't care and won't. The extra mile is like clicking a link, verifying your email, or watching the trailer. These are hurdles.
I totally agree. I mean, and that's one of those things where there's so many things in Phobies like that. Like the quest system, for example, is another thing I'd like to see reworked.
Mm-hmm.
Where the quest system is like, kill 2 mechanical phobies with Clinico. I really don't want to do that. I don't want to. Phobies is already a high effort game, which kind of holds it back in some sense, right?
100%.
You can't relax too. It's not too relaxing because it's demanding a lot of your attention and thought processes to make good decisions, which is part of enjoying the experience. And to have to go extra and say, how can I possibly kill 2 mechs with Clinico today? That's miserable to make me do that every day.
So
Most people have completely given up on doing quests and Phobies.
I know I did a long time ago. I used to joke about it, and then it stopped being a joke. It's like, yeah, I don't remember the last time I went into the quest menu at all. And
yeah,
it's unfortunate because, similar to the pity pack system, it should be a meaningful way to help supplement your collection. Like, I'm doing something hard, so I get a cool reward. But the problem is that, coming back to the economy, the rewards for, like, imagine if killing 2 things with Clinico literally gave you a new phobie and guaranteed it. Everybody would do that quest, right?
Yep.
Because the reward is meaningful. Now, they can't do that for a lot of reasons, but there has to be something better than, all right, here's like 200 tiers and giving you something. Like, you can't tell me there's no middle ground. And that's assuming that it doesn't just get reworked to actually be reasonable. There are tons of systems. Just take a quest system from almost any other game, for heaven's sake, at this point. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, there are so many games that just take it. I don't care.
I have a collection of screenshots in my system's feedback document from other mobile games, and I just say, please reference other games and look at what they're doing. Like, well, what is, like, Hearthstone has things like spend 30 mana on spells today, It's like, you will do that just by breathing and playing the game naturally, right?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it boils down to, like, it's different ways of repainting the same thing. Effectively, all the quests for most games that I played, whether it was Duelist, or Duelist 2, Cards and Castles 1 and 2, Hearthstone, Warhammer Warpforge, all of these other digital card games, most of their quests boil down to play 2 games. Now, it may be
Yep.
kill X number of things, deal Y amount of damage, spend Z amount of resources, or any flavor of other things. But it effectively boils down to play 2 games. But because you're thinking about it, again, it's all just psychological stuff of just like, it's a different way of telling your brain that the thing you're doing that is identical is somehow different. And it's fine, but it definitely feeds that need to just fill bars and get bigger numbers. Just
Yep.
make it easier, please. It doesn't have to be this hard.
Well, speaking of things that are too hard and playing 2 games.
Yeah.
So I opened my season pack this last Sunday.
Oh God, here we go.
And for the 3rd month in a row, I got duplicates. And I just thought to myself, why am I doing this? Why I've spent the last 3 months, and here's the thing, I play on Steam. Steam keeps track of my hours. My average Phobies playtime is a little over 30 hours a week. So I play Phobies like it's...
That's almost literally a job.
Yeah, it's literally a job to do 6 matches a day, every single day, every month, and I just got jack shit 3 months in a row for doing that. And I thought about it for like the first time of do I really care about this much, this chance of getting a new Phobie? And I looked at the silver pack. So to get the gold pack, you play 6 matches a day. To get the silver pack, you only have to play 2 matches a day. And I thought, you know what? I'm going
Silver's
down to the
good enough.
Silver's good enough. And this is I've been playing Phobies. I've never missed a gold pack. Ever. And this month, I decided I'm going down to the silver pack because it's not worth my time. I don't think the game's meta is very fun right now, personally. I think most people feel that way. And I'm not getting anything for my time. And I thought, how weird is it that once a player has a solid collection, your systems actually give no incentive for me to play a good amount of Phobies. There's no incentive for me to be playing, I was thinking, except for fun, and I'm not having fun right now. So I'm proud of myself. I've only played it's Friday, and I've played 14 matches. Usually I'm more around 40 right now to make sure I hit the weekly 42.
Right.
I've kept it down to 14. I'm going to do 2 a day. That's it. I don't intend to do more until they make the season pack.
You're on my slow slide that I hit a few years ago. Well, not a few years ago, but like a year and a half ago or whatever. And I slowly started to creep down, because I do want to play Phobies, but I agree that, and there is the counter argument is of course going to be, well, why don't you just play for the love of the game? It's like, yes, obviously, but like, is that a reason to penalize me and make me like drag myself through broken glass to play 1,000 games in order to get nothing?
Right. I mean, there's no game. The only game that I've played like 30 hours a week for multiple years, I think, besides Phobies, is World of Warcraft. And there's a hell of a lot more to do in World of Warcraft than Phobies.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want to play, but playing 6 matches a day, if you do the math, average match is somewhere between 15, 20 minutes. Let's just be generous and say 15 minutes, even though I think it's higher.
Right.
6 matches a day, that's an hour and a half of play every single day. And
it's a lot.
That's a lot of game time, first of all, for an adult to be doing. And for a lot of people, that's saying, hey, we're your main game. This is like something that drives me crazy in the mobile sphere with all the gacha games as a service models. They all want to be your main game.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them. I feel like we're at a point where companies need to understand and accept that if you really want to keep players, you need to design yourself as someone's side game, as the baseline. And if they want to be you to be their main game, cool. But you need to give people satisfying experiences for like 30 minutes of Phobies a day, not an hour and a half as the baseline.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I don't remember if I said it earlier, if you did, or if we said it at all, but the Pokemon aspect, coming back to that idea of giving people something. So with respect to the monthly pack, what is reasonable and this is not like I'm looking for a specific answer. It's kind of just me screaming into the void. But like, what is a reasonable amount of time of free to play? We'll start there to have the entire cast of Phobies, not max it out, just own every Phobie. Because right now it's like, I don't know, 6 years after I'm dead, probably.
I don't know if okay, so I don't know if I think that free-to-play players should ever have the full collection. I don't know about that because one thing
I mean,
that
it's a
I
reasonable
have
thing to what you're saying. Like, it's a reasonable question to ask. Is should that even
Yeah.
happen? Which I'm sure I'll get a ton of
Yeah,
angry
because
comments, but continue.
here's my thing about it is they release an ultra rare every month, right? If you got to a point where you had a full collection, there would never be a reason to spend that unless that $100 on that new exclusive Phobie, unless you're really so impatient that you can't just wait next month to get it for free.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of push to say, hey, you want to buy this, otherwise it might not happen for you, or it might not happen for a very long time,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, my counter argument to that is if I played Phobies for 5 years straight as a free-to-play player, is there literally never a point where I can hit that I'm on the gravy train stage? Do they still need to milk something from me as somebody who's played for whatever I'm saying 5 years, but it's an arbitrary amount. Like, clearly I'm still playing.
I feel that. I think I'm going to take it from a different angle, which is instead of thinking about when should people have a full collection, what I want to turn it into is how often do players need to get Phobies for them to keep playing?
Yeah.
And whatever the answer to that is, will also answer the question of when do people, if they get a full collection by virtue of what do you need to do to retain people. That's what you do, and that leads to the eventual conclusion of how many Phobies people end up with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, one of my counter arguments to people getting a full collection through any amount of time of playing, whatever it's determined to be, if it's determined to be even be viable, is the Pokemon aspect does drive people to even play. I think a lot of people would just straight up stop playing if they got everything. Because like that is whether they want to believe it or not, the end goal.
I agree with you. I mean, that's basically why I stopped going for the gold pack. 3 months in a row, I didn't get anything. My mindset has changed from maybe I'll get something to I probably won't get anything, so I'm not going to bother. It's the same kind of Pokemon thing. I'm not expecting to get more toys, so my effort has dropped. And I think also this is really interesting. Sometimes the Phobies devs have these big competitions where they give out like a 10,000 or 20,000 coffee reward, On multiple occasions, the winners of those contests have quit soon after winning. And it's
probably because they didn't get anything.
What's that?
Because they didn't get anything?
They didn't get anything. Or they got like one thing.
I've spent 40, 50, 60,000 coffee at a time and gotten like, I usually get something. But it's like
it opened their eyes to how bad the economy is.
Yes.
And made them realize not only am I never going to get everything, I'm never going to get most of this stuff with the way I play now.
The level of despair and hopelessness is a problem.
Say again?
I said the level of despair and hopelessness is a problem. Like, I think most people are willing to accept, like, look, I got to really work hard at this or I got to put in money. Like on some level, everyone knows they have the company has to make money.
Yep.
But there are degrees. It's a spectrum. Like it isn't binary of they make money or I get everything. Like there's a middle ground somewhere.
There's a middle ground and we're not in it.
Yeah. And I keep harping on the economy, but like every part of this is impacted where it's just like, okay, well, if we change this, they're going to change how much money they get. And how does that impact things? Do we get more players? Do we get less? Because a lot of the systems we're talking about, like the pity pack system, admittedly, a new player that has played other games will onboard and go, wait, there's no pity system?
Yep.
And go like, that's sketchy. And then maybe they bail. So like it's
Well,
not
especially
like it's a new player, but not like somebody who's never touched it literally at all. But a lot of
yeah,
the systems we're talking about are retention-based systems as compared to like onboarding stuff.
that's true. Separate issues, right?
Yeah.
I think like one thing for me is oh, I just lost it. Okay. One thing I think that exacerbates this issue of the economy is that Phobies is a game with
Mhm.
zero RNG in it. It's a purely deterministic
Yeah.
game like chess.
Yep.
Its community loves it for that reason.
Of course.
Then for some reason the economy is pure RNG. So there's like a horrendous mismatch here where you have a game that has no RNG and a kind of it's pure RNG, and that's going to cause inherent conflict of the kind of person that you're attracting.
I
I'm at the
think.
point now where I think every single
Mhm.
element of Phobies where the rewards are randomized should have a pity timer. I think
Yeah.
the season pack should have a pity timer.
100%.
Maybe every 3 months you're guaranteed an ultra rare if you haven't gotten one. I think the VIP pass
But
should
that
have
goes
a
back to,
pity
not to
timer.
break your train of thought, but that goes back to the I was using free to play players as the example, but there has to be a number of like how much time or how much money or a combination thereof till you get everything. And we're saying scale it back because obviously the number $13,000 is not anyone's target. And God knows how many hours that would be if you weren't spending money. But like, bottom line is the bar's got to come down. It is not reasonable where it is.
Not just the bars to come down, but I think the systems by which things happen change. Like even like for example, before you've said, realistically they could cut the coffee pack costs in half,
Yeah. I think they should always
and
be
they
like the
could,
sale price should be the regular price and then go on further discount. But go ahead.
but I still think it wouldn't solve the game's economy in the sense that there are people I know for this last update who went 72 dreadfuls before they got all of the phobies.
Mm-hmm.
That's 72 dreadfuls.
To that point,
And
I don't
if
know of people getting 72. So what's that? 144? If they went 144 and it's like, all right, I got two things. I don't know if that's going to make them feel better or feel worse.
I don't know either. But I know that at 72, you're questioning the game you're playing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. At a certain point, it's now to your point about the gacha system and the packs. Like, I do think, while yes, there are, it is a deterministic game, and it does seem to be at odds with its financial system. I'm pretty sure there are chess players that gamble, like poker or slots or whatever. So, like, I don't think it's necessarily what was that?
There are Phobies players who love the gambling aspect too.
Yeah, my point is that I don't think it's necessarily directly at odds. However, I will say that their monetization system, like, they definitely left money on the table with cosmetics and other customization options. Like, look, the portraits are cute and all, but I'm not paying $25 for a portrait. And I'm pretty sure there aren't too many people who bought those $25 portraits. Maybe there are. I don't know. But like, there have to be other options and other avenues and other revenue streams. And similar to the pity pack system, similar to a lot of the the quest system reworks and a lot of the other things we've suggested and have been discussing, these are not new. And they weren't new when Phobies went into development. When Phobies was a glimmer in someone's eye.
Mm-hmm.
They were well-established systems that they had to have come up in a design meeting, and they chose to not go with these things for reasons. Now, it could be they just straight up don't have the resources to do it. They thought it would be problematic. Like WoW had this for a while with arenas and still does, where like they want the silhouette of a character to at a distance be easily recognizable. And MOBAs do this too, where the silhouette does not meaningfully change generally for a character when they change their skin, so that competitively it's reasonable.
Yep, it's important.
And that might be true for Phobies, even though it's a turn-based game and you have async where you could have a million years to just click on the damn thing. But I get it. Maybe they chose to not do these things for those reasons. But it's hard for me. Like, if I'm saying, hey, Phobies team, take a pay cut, change the prices, change the pity pack system, the other part of me wants to say, well, all right, buoy it with these cosmetics, but they literally can't. Like, it's just not possible.
They can't partially because they've already used effectively cosmetics reskins as new Phobies.
Yeah.
You know, like
they would have to
razor
add something new, which is like, now you got to create all that stuff.
Say again?
You'd have to add something net new. So, like, I always suggested, like, Santa hats. Put Santa hats on all the Phobies.
Right.
But that means an enormous art investment and all this other stuff. Like, it's just not feasible.
Yeah, it's not. And I think League of Legends, I really appreciate their candidness with how they went heavy on cosmetics. And we're very open that most of their cosmetics lost the money. And that was a failed model, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Phobies, I think that's why some of these profile avatars cost like $20 and stuff like that in the shop. I think they're like trying to balance out the cost of development on those a little bit because otherwise they don't earn anything.
For anybody out there wondering, it is not cheap. Don't
No,
look at it and go, oh, it's just a little profile. What is it, like $50? No, we're probably talking, I don't know for them, but I would guess upwards of $8,000 each kind of thing.
Yeah. I think because what people don't realize is we're talking about the time of a salaried employee that could be doing something else to make the company money.
Yeah. Or even if they're contracting it out, because there are plenty of artists that will do contract work for this sort of thing.
Yes.
And they have, like, their time is valuable because every minute that they're spending creating a phobie, creating a portrait, creating a new map, the tile set, whatever, is time that they're not doing a different project that could be feeding their family with more money. You know, like, that's the way the world works. And you can't fight it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm at the point where I just feel like we need a pity timer and everything.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Like,
even the VIP pass, like people buy it, they get the tier 5 pack, and they're pissed. Even though it lists the percent chance of getting the tier 5 pack, they're pissed because they in their heads everyone thinks they're going to be a winner, right?
Yeah.
Add a pity timer to it. I don't know how many months, but every so many months, you get the tier 1 reward. Woohoo! Yippee! That person keeps spending money on the VIP pass because they're looking forward to that.
Yeah. I do think in general, like, the VIP pass, I think was a great idea.
Yeah.
I think there need to be more impulse buy level things in general that are meaningful. Like you said, the VIP pass, like, great, VIP pass, it wasn't that big of an expenditure, gives me an incentive to play the game, but then I end up with crap and therefore I'm less likely to do it. You need to have a reasonable payoff for these things, but they also need to be impulse buys. I love the idea of the monthly Phobies. I mean, I was praising it earlier and I want more stuff along those lines, but not $100, which kind of circles back to all right, if it's not time, how much money is it before you can just buy every Phobie? So, like, if we had that rotation, like, how much would that be? I don't know. But these are the questions that would have to be answered for this sort of thing to exist.
Yep.
We clobbered those for a while. I have a ton of minor pet peeves of, like, why do we still not have all maps available at all times in frenemies? Why is that bound to the rotation? Why can't we get more map changes or, like, any kind of input on that end?
Not just map changes, but, like, can we just remove some crap? Like, if you don't, I understand if they don't have time to fix some maps, but there's no reason in this world that Lights Out should still be in rotation and exist.
And it keeps coming back. There are clear, like, Agora is clearly, that got banished.
Because Nico Ray took feedback for it. I don't know what changed there where that stopped happening, but she took feedback on like maybe 3 or 4 maps, and then we never did that again.
I wonder if there's a way to, again, have the system in game to be like, did you enjoy this game? Sort of thing.
Have you ever read about, have you ever played Overwatch?
Yeah.
Okay. In the early days, after a match, Overwatch would ask you if the matchmaking did a good job. Did you play during that era?
I do remember that, yeah.
Okay. And Blizzard did a post, one of the Blizzard designers, they removed it eventually.
Yeah.
And people thought, it's because they don't want to make things negative, or, they don't want the feedback. And the design basically said that 90+% of the time, if you won the match, you clicked yes, it was good. And if you lost the match, you said nope, it's not good.
I wonder, but so for matchmaking, I would get it. I wonder how people would respond, and I could definitely see it being more the same for maps. Like, would people, if I won on Lights Out, am I going to say that's a good map? I don't know. Like, I wouldn't, but maybe people would.
I had one of my Lights Out matches, I was playing someone, so my stress level is 135. My opponent's stress level was 95. Okay? Levels were literally close to double his. It was a 68 turn match. Because he had Chevelle and Repeller out, and I had a Tractor out. There was no, I can't approach him. I have to cover all of his harassment. He can't go in, otherwise I'll pull everything and he'll die. We just stood and traded 1-keys back and forth, and I won because I'm player 2.
I had an Agora game like that eventually, it was right before, I think that might have been the game that made me stop playing async, because it lasted 4 or 5 seasons.
Yup.
And like every day I would just log in, I'd be like, yep, end turn.
Yeah.
And eventually I just sent my whole team into his, and they all got brutalized because like that's how the way the standoff was going. And I said, it's not worth playing. Like, I don't care. I'd rather get this game out of my queue. I just don't even care anymore.
There's a streamer by the name of Pirate Software. Have you ever heard of him?
Yep. Yeah, I'm very familiar.
Okay. Oh, is that you don't like him kind of?
No, I've seen a lot of his stuff because he comes up on my stream or my feed for other reasons, ironically not related to game design.
Oh, for what?
For IT stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I enjoy listening to his, I just discovered him like a month ago. But I enjoy it because he has a lot of wisdom, right?
Yes,
with
absolutely.
IT stuff, programming, design. I don't care about his like video game streaming stuff. I'm not like, I don't watch streams I watch. But he had this thing where he said there was a game, I forget the name of it, that solves toxicity. And Phobies, like there are 2 things that I don't know how to solve exactly in Phobies. Like I have no idea. One is undo toxicity, where like someone spams undo over and over again.
Does it really come up that often now?
I mean, there was someone who complained about it today in the Discord and said it's happened to them like several matches in a row as a new player.
Was it the same guy like doing it to them? I'm assuming they didn't say that.
They made it sound like it was different people. They said like, does everyone do this? It keeps happening to me. And he mentioned that there was a game that solved toxicity by doing this. After every match of this game, the game asked you to give your opponent a thumbs up or thumbs down for whether they were a good sport. If you give them there's no penalty for a thumbs down, but if you give them a thumbs up, they got extra rewards in currency.
Yeah.
Which means that everyone had the incentive to be on good behavior all the time, because wouldn't you like to get better rewards? And I thought, that's not a bad idea to help solve undo spam.
Yeah.
If I could click a thumbs up on you and maybe you get like an extra like 2 coffee and maybe like an extra 100 tiers or something like that. Not like game breaking, it's going to break the economy, but enough that people like stop doing this kind of stuff because they'd rather get
I don't think it would take much to get people to stop, to be honest. Like if you gave them 2 coffee, if I told you if you were a dick, you will not get 2 coffee, but if you're not a dick, you'll get 2 coffee. Like I think every single person would do it.
Like 99% for sure.
Yeah,
I
like
think
it
so.
would be up there because
Same thing with
like it's not hard to not be a dick. That's why I was asking, like, how often is this really happening? I don't doubt people saying it's happening. Like it 100% happens. It's just
it doesn't. So I don't see it very often because like 80% of my opponents surrender to me immediately. I'm at the point where
there's
even
that.
some of All Fear's 3 players surrendered to me, and I don't face them at all anymore.
Mm.
So I don't. People don't give me the chance to see, I guess.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
people complain about it still. And sandbagging is another one. Sandbagging is the other issue where there are people who they're SOF 3 level players, but they sandbag all the way down to Doomsday to have easy matches. And that one, I thought, you know, Clash Royale has this thing where every season this resets,
Mm.
but every time you move up a league, you get some rewards, like 50 dupes, some coins in their currency or whatever. And I thought, you know what, that would encourage people to rise up in rank instead of sandbag, because wouldn't
Wouldn't
you
it
rather
encourage them to
try and
sandbag in
get
this scenario? Because then if you so and like maybe I'm misunderstanding you, so correct me here. So I hit some of All Fears 3 and I go, you know what? I don't want to play against Karst. I don't want to play against Alien Engineer. I don't want to play against people that are actually good at the game. I'm gonna, tank as many games as is necessary, get down to a low enough level, and then just curb stomp people. Would I not want to do that in order to try and get these rewards again? Because then I just rank up and get more, and then D rank and then re rank.
That's a good question. I'm not sure how these games prevent that. There might be like a floor that you
Hmm.
can't pass beneath or something.
I mean,
you know what it is? Oh, here it
yeah, go
is.
ahead.
No, here it is. Every time the season resets, you auto collect all of the rewards for the leagues beneath where you are at the start of the reset.
Okay.
So there's no incentive to drop to regain them. You get them regardless
Hmm.
of how that happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, say I want to do that. Is there any way to stop? Like, I hit whatever rank I think this is the highest rank I think I'm going to hit this season.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry, I'm out of water, so my throat's getting dry. I've been drinking the melting ice from my cup at this point.
Do you want to get a water break? That's
No,
fine with
I'm
me.
all right. We'll be all right.
Okay.
So let's say I get to Some of All Fears 2 and I go, you know what? I'm never going to hit Some of All Fears 3, so I don't care. So I'm going to start tanking games. Like with this definitely feels like a stick scenario as opposed to a carrot where like, and I don't even know because I remember this back in the 1990s, people would do this because yeah, if there's a ranking system and there's any kind of skill-based matchmaking, there will be people who try to circumvent it by intentionally tanking games. And the only way that I've seen it really solved is there's a team of people who monitor it and it's just whack-a-mole. And as you'd imagine, that is just not efficient.
Right, especially with a small team like the Phobies team. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, this
Also,
is something that I wonder, like it similar to the BM issue. It 100% happens. And I believe people when they say that it's happening, but is this the highest priority issue? Like, I don't even know how many people this would impact.
I don't either. This is an idea. Side note too. You mentioned Alien Engineer. I don't know if you're aware. He's not playing anymore.
Yeah. As soon as I said it, I remembered.
Yeah, and it's a thing. Like with how the meta is, the Phobies Discord has a lot of people who are hanging out but not playing the game anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's my opinion is the combination of Chevelle, Phantom, and the Sentinels has just led to a game that's not very fun to play right now. Plus map issues. Map issues being the top one, even if people don't really respect it as a thing.
Well, I think map issues are less obvious for people to recognize. Like, it's very easy to look at a Lights Out or an Agora and go, yeah, that map is crap. But the subtleties of, well, these particular things cause this issue, it's harder to identify for a lot of people.
I totally agree. It's difficult.
Yeah. So, I mean, without devolving into balance-related stuff, what other things are you wishing for from Vendy-claus?
Vendy-claus, I love it.
I mean,
Did
she's
you
got
play
the
that just
hat.
now, or have you had that? Have you had that in your pocket this whole time?
No, I did earlier. I was like, I need to come up with something, and then I don't remember if I thought of it and then forgot it or what. But we're gonna go with Vendy-claus. Actually, did they call Vendy-claus at one point? They had to have, right?
Let me see.
They had to have, like in one of the announcements over the years or whatever. But anyway,
Not in the Discord, at least.
okay.
I just did a quick search. A big one for me
Hmm.
is wild cards. We got the acceleration.
Yeah,
It's great for the whales. The rest, everyone else needs something that can help catch up new phobies, and that's wild cards. Cards that you can
yeah.
use to level up any phobie that you own. Again, it could be limited by the average level, just like acceleration. That's fine. But for the average person who is a dolphin,
Hmm.
they also need to be able to enjoy the updates, even if they're only able to save up enough wild cards where they can choose like a phobie or two phobies from the update to pick to bring up to their average levels. It needs to be a thing.
So this is gonna be a weird, maybe a strained comparison, but to this point, when I play other games, I'm not this kind of player. Like, I don't get foils or like alternate arts or things most of the time. It's very, very rare. And I certainly don't try and do it for like my entire deck when I play card games. But there are absolutely people
That
who love.
surprises me.
I just don't care. I want the game pieces. Like, I want the thing. So if I get one of the super duper cool ones, I usually try and offload it so that way I can get more of the things that let me do something different.
And so you have like a figure collection and stuff like that. So I'm
Yeah.
surprised you aren't into the cosmetics with games.
No, they just don't. I mean, typically they don't. It just doesn't matter to me. But where I'm going with it is, um, I totally forgot where the hell I was going with it now. Holy crap! I totally
Sorry, you're
lost
saying
it.
in most games you don't go for the cosmetics and the foils and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I was forgetting how
We
I
were
was
talking
tying
about
it to Phobies was the problem. It'll come back to me. Um,
we were talking about wild cards.
yeah. This is like real bad. It's totally out of my head because it was, like I said, it was kind of strained anyway, where it was like, oh
I'm
well, this
sorry.
only is a tenuous connection to it. Nah, it's fine. I do agree about the wild cards. There's definitely needs to be more for the other player subsets besides the whales and krakens that obviously are getting their fancy toys. The other players need an incentive to continue playing, and they need to be able to get the thing every once in a while.
They need to be excited about the updates because right
It's
now
fun
updates
to
are
fill
exciting for the
bars.
reveals,
That's what it
and then
was.
everyone.
That's what it was. I
What's
just
that?
remembered because I said fill bars. Sorry to cut you off. So there are people who like cracking packs because it's like, oh, maybe I'll get the cool thing, or like this is the last card for my collection, so I can have a complete set, or I get the special cool stuff. So now that the chasing of those things, like if you have the wild card, it gives you a way to have the thing to have an intermediate goal of I want to go get, like, I have a chance to try and do the collection aspect of Phobies. Whereas today it is, from once you realize you've crossed the Rubicon and you understand now how everything works on the economic side and the packs, most people, I think, just fall into a pit of despair. They recognize they are just
Yep.
straight up never going to do it. It is just not going to happen for 99.9% of people. And compare that to virtually any other, well, certainly all the mobile games that I played. Like, yeah, you won't get every card in a card game, but most people don't care about getting every card. They just want to get enough to play the things they want to play. And then when the new
A
stuff comes
couple
out, they get
decks that
that.
they really like.
Say that again, Cars.
A couple decks that they really like. That's
Yeah,
what they want.
exactly. Now, Phobies is different because like you said, that guy, Fire Ant guy in the main Discord, is attached to a particular phobie. But putting that aside, you still need certain things. So like, if we're comparing it to a deck in another game, it's like these are the core staples, and it's just impossible to get them. Like there's no crafting system. The packs are atrocious. It's just really hard.
Which is why I think one thing a lot of people want, I don't know how much it'll actually make a difference in practice, but it's a common wish that I think is a good thing in spirit, is a Phobies store that has, most mobile games have this, like maybe twice a day or 3 times a day, the store resets and it has different dupes you can buy with XP or tiers maybe to level up your guys faster. And maybe you could also, they have some direct purchases. You can spend just like 10,000 coffee and just directly get the phobia you want. When
That's kind of what I was getting at earlier. It's just a matter of, like, this becomes a math equation for the devs of, can we feasibly do this?
Yeah. I think that's a good feature people want a lot of.
Yeah.
But number one, also the wild cards, there's a design flaw in the game that just has to be addressed.
Ooh.
Which is...
Oh, sorry, I got to write this down so I don't forget this. Go ahead, continue your thought, because I just had a suggestion going back to one of your other ideas.
When your phobia hits level 30, which is max level, you still get dupes for it.
Yeah, which is kind of bonkers. Admittedly, it only affects Hoploy or maybe Karth at this point, but still, it's
at
silly.
some point it'll affect Karst, and Karst will be very unhappy about it.
In what year? 2032 at this rate? Like, mathematically. So the idea, you were talking about issues with people sandbagging. What if this hypothetical store unlocked additional slots for you to do what, like, buy new stuff based on your rank? So the higher rank you are. I adore that. What was that?
I adore that idea.
Because then there's an incentive to, like, oh, well, I want to not only be Sum of All Fears 3 to get access to this stuff, I need to maintain Sum of All Fears 3 to continue to have access to it.
Yes. I love this idea. That's a fantastic idea. And maybe,
I mean, there are issues with it, but, like, I mean, it's better than not having one.
Right. And maybe there are other ways that could be incorporated into other things, too. Maybe there's other things that could be locked based on your rating. I don't have any, like, ideas off the top of my head, but that's a brilliant
I'm sure
idea.
there are more. Like, we can definitely come up with more. The issue that I can already hear complaints about is, like, that's a rich get richer thing. Like, well, the best players continue to get access to more of the best stuff. Therefore, they continue crapping on people and maintain their status. But those are details, like how the specifics work can be fixed. Like, maybe now your gold pack each season, like, it's also gated by games, like quantity of games played. So if you go over X number of games in a season, you now also could unlock this stuff, which then encourages people to play more.
Yeah, it could be like a gold pack or rating kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe like in your gold pack for like you get a ticket or something that allows you X number of uses at the extended store or some shit. I don't know. Like there are ways that it can be done.
Yeah. I think that's all. Those are interesting ideas for sure.
Yeah.
I like the idea of gating some things to discourage sandbagging like that.
There are ways to tie all of the goals together, I think.
A Karst only request that I want for is I want bots added to Arena.
Yeah.
Like I said, I spent like 30 hours a week playing Phobies.
Mm-hmm.
Half of that is waiting in the queue.
I'm not surprised.
And that sucks. And it feels that's a huge waste of my time. Mm-hmm. And the thing is this, it's such about matchmaking because I'm not waiting. If I were waiting for matchmaking for other strong players, it would suck, but it would be reasonable. Right now, the system is I wait like 7 minutes, and then I'm matched with someone 1,000 rating beneath me, who I just steamroll and has no hope of possibly hurting me unless I fall unconscious during the match.
Yeah.
And I think that's a terrible system not just for me, but for them.
Oh yeah.
Why they don't want to be sacrificed to me, and I don't have any desire to bully them either. I would rather, after like a minute, that they just give me a bot. I don't care if it's challenging or not, because the person 1,000 below me is not challenging either, I promise you. But at least I get to play a match faster, and the person who would be sacrificed to me instead gets to play a balanced opponent.
I think there need to be tighter bans for matchmaking. I don't love the ideas of like complete matchmaking overalls that people suggest. And like, obviously the team feels that there's some level of competitive integrity where like the ladder is the competitive arena. But like the reality of, again, the economy of the game means that all that stuff goes out the window. And I don't care what anybody says. It is meaningless. So as a different way of because this was one of the things that I was wishing for of tackling that same issue, is different modes of play. I mean, I host tournaments.
Yep.
But there need to be in client, we'll call them events. They don't have to be tournaments. Queues, call them whatever. I don't care. Arena, like, well, we have arena, but the Coliseum, whatever. I don't care. The point is that there need to be alternative ways to play. Because, yes, there are people at the top of the ladder who are impacted by this. By definition, them being at the top of the ladder means there's very few of them that are impacted. So creating that entire system for just them feels like it's going to, I don't want to say be a waste of time, but like it's a lot of effort for very few people.
I definitely agree.
In creating an event system where, let's say, and I'm making stuff up, it could be something else for anybody out there complaining that this doesn't suit your needs, scream at me in the comments, whatever. But like, say there was an 8-person, 3-round Swiss or single elim tournament system where you buy in with coffee or tiers or both or XP, it doesn't matter. Everything's set to level 1. So that doesn't help the whales because they can't lord it over people. But it does give people a chance to mess around with Phobies at a more equal level. I don't think it will ever happen because of the level 1 piece, because that immediately kneecaps one of their primary revenue paths. But I think there needs to be something else, because that helps people at the top of the ladder who can't find a game, because it's like, hey, you're walking into this room, you could get Karst, you could get Joe Blow, who just downloaded the game.
Is Joe Blow the only name you can think of now that you can't say Alien Engineer?
Well, no, I usually say either Jim Bob, Joe Blow, or something McGee to represent, like, I literally just downloaded the game, like hyper newbie.
Yeah.
As compared to the other end of the spectrum. But the point is that I want another reason for people to be in the client playing the game. Yeah. And a shorter experience than doing an entire ladder season. I think there needs to be something like playing a one-off game is fine, but I think there's like the grind of the ladder wears on you. And there's articles from, like, the one I usually repost is from Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic the Gathering and Netrunner and King of Tokyo and all this other stuff. He wrote an article 2 years ago now explaining why skill-based matchmaking systems, aka ladders, are bad and tournaments are good for growing communities. Even if you get the Karst chicken new player in the deck because they got paired in round 1, and just like, even at level 1, like you're going to beat a new player. So
back up here for me, Chomp.
Yeah.
What's the reason? I haven't seen this article, I think.
So let me pull it up. There's several. What's funny is at the time I was going to write an article for, like, I was writing an article for my website, and then somebody linked it to me, and I'm like, God damn it, Richard Garfield beat me to the punch. So yeah,
he's always stealing my good ideas.
Exactly. He got me again. If it wasn't for those damned kids. So yeah, this was March 2nd, 2022. Title of the article, and this is on gamedeveloper.com. Keep your numbers off of me. Why tournaments support better communities than ladders. So he explains the like what the scenarios are. But it'll take a while to go through this whole article but among them are, what was that?
I can read it later.
Yeah, I'll here, let me, before I forget, I'll post it into.
I found it.
You found it? Okay. But like ladder anxiety is one of them, although you can get tournament anxiety as well. The biggest thing for me is the time commitment, where, to your point from several suggestions ago, of 168 games is like a bazillion games. Like, why? Especially given the time commitment. If it was, hey, it's Saturday, I'm not working today, I got 2 hours. Let me hop in a queue to play 3 games that are quote unquote meaningful instead of one of 80 gazillion ladder games. Make it a little higher stakes. Make it get a little more interesting. And then hopefully that drives people to play stuff. Or at least gives them an alternative to play, or like how they're playing. I gotta be honest, like for me personally, I can't care about ladder games. I haven't in any game I've ever played. It's just like after a while, it's just, they're all the same. It means nothing.
Yeah. I don't really know how much I care. I think I care mostly for the rewards. I end up high in ladder just because part of me enjoying the game is playing well. So it's like a natural consequence of why I'm here in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't like care about my individual actual position or anything. Like, I feel like, number one on the ladder. I've been number one on the ladder several times. And I'll tell you, it doesn't change anything. In fact, for new players, a lot of them, like a common thing I tell new players is they'll be like, oh, I'm facing this person who's 5 levels above me. This sucks. I hate this game. And I tell them, just surrender the match then. Who cares? And they say, well, then my rating drops. And I tell them, but you're here to have fun, right? So if you're having fun, why are you playing it? And I tell them, they say, well, what about my leagues? And I say, leagues have no effect on anything. I say, do you know what Sum of All Fears gets you? It gets you harder matches, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no real benefit. You get the difference in your weekly coffee is 7 coffee a week. That doesn't matter, right? That's negligible. So really, there's no reason to go up in leagues and phobies. And I tell people, enjoy being whatever rank you're at. Don't worry about it. Your rank doesn't matter in this game. Which is why I'm probably not going to hit SOF 3 this month, because I'm only playing the 2 matches a day. If I lose a couple matches, it won't happen for me by the end of the month. It's what's the math there? Is it 52 total? So I guess I will hit it unless I mess up or something like that. But I won't care, you know?
Well, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was suggesting, is like there needs to be another way for people to play. Like, I get frenemies, but that's another quality of life suggestion. Just why is there a limit on the goddamn frenemies list? But like,
have I introduced you to shuffle mode?
I feel like we have discussed this, but I don't remember.
This is the game mode that I think Phobies needs.
Okay.
And this is my number one Christmas wish list thing for new features, not for fixing old stuff that needs to be fixed, but new stuff. And I'm just going to read it to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's first of all, it's a clan system. And you join the clan with other people. And what you can do once you're in the clan is you can start clan matches. That I'm calling shuffle mode because I don't have a more creative idea and I want to be clear on what it's doing. And the idea is you start a match, you get to take a turn. Then anyone else in your clan can pick up that match and make the next turn. Everyone in the clan can use everyone else's phobies. So if you get a diverse community, you can fill out a full collection for the clan. And the idea is you can complete matches as a clan with relatively little investment, there's low anxiety because one issue that Phobies has is all the responsibility for the loss is on you,
Yeah.
which people do not like, right? People like to
Hmm.
be able to say, I didn't lose, my teammates lost kind of
Yeah,
stuff. So you
exactly.
get dissemination of responsibility. It's more casual. It adds a social feature that I think is really helpful. Um, I personally love this idea, and I feel like if they added this, it would give people something new to do. It's a new way to play the game. It builds community, and I think most importantly, it's targeting a different kind of demographic because
Mhm.
Phobies is a PvP only game basically, and not a lot of people like doing 1v1 competitive play in this world compared
Yeah.
to how many people like exploring things, doing challenging PvE or cooperative play. And I think offering a cooperative play mode like this would be huge for keeping and drawing in new players.
Yeah. I mean, the clans have been suggested for almost as long as Phobies has existed, and I think that it would be beneficial to have it. There are challenges, but they can be solved. One thing that
I've solved all of them. You don't have to worry. I've solved them all.
one thing that I think does need to get added, and I've seen this in other games, is clan quests. Like
Yes.
where you can
Yes.
cooperatively, like even if it's just the stupid undead thing, where it's like do a billion damage with whatever. Obviously not a billion, but like do a ton of damage with undead phobies, and your whole clan contributes towards that goal, and then you all win. And like, yeah, people love that kind of stuff.
Yep. One of the things I mentioned was like it would be cool if each week the game took 5% of a player's weekly coffee and put it into a clan chest.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the end of the month, every guild member gets to open that chest and get the total net coffee gained. The math of this, if you had 20 SOF 3 players,
Mm-hmm.
that would be 600 coffee a month for everyone, which is not going to break the Phobies bank, but would give like everyone a kind of, yay, we did this as a team, everyone
Mm-hmm.
benefits kind of thing.
Right. And I think at a certain level, because we were talking earlier about the whales, dolphins, krakens, etc., and trying to throw these bones to the not whales. At the end of the day, the whales are obviously spending the most money, and everybody who's played a free-to-play game should know this. But if you do not, if you are not spending money, you are the product. People are paying to kick the crap out of you because they want to lord it over people. Like that's the whole point of spending money and getting the advantage is I know I have an advantage, so I win the game. Or I have the cool thing, like the cool skin or whatever. I want other people to see it.
In this weird sense, like Phobies does this very weirdly, right? Because it's a very high skill game
Yeah.
relative to the power imbalance that you can pay for. We talked about earlier how it doesn't really matter how much money you spend, grinding is going to catch up. If you're a hardcore grinder with the daily triple, you're going to bypass anyone who spends money on coffee and just tries to level that way easily.
Mm.
And in that sense, like we know that the ladder is filled with a few whales, and they lose to people far below them.
Yeah.
And so
all
in
the
a
time.
sense, like it's not really worth it. It's weird because Phobies has a pay for advantage mechanic, but it's not very good at its job, right? Like you can overcome it by being better quite significantly. I don't know if it's good or bad for the game's like finances, but it's part of why we're still here playing it.
Yeah. But it is something that like there it just comes back to money at the end of the day. I don't know. I can't get away from it and get it out of my head that regardless of which demographic you fall into, how much money you're spending or not, there are things that we don't know that we're requesting all these things that ultimately need to somehow make more money for Smoking Gun than they are now by them giving away stuff, which sounds like an insane statement on its surface.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that some people just quit and give up. It's like there was this Pirate Software video where he just frankly said, if I install your game and the first thing I get is a pop-up that says buy this, I'm uninstalling your game. If I play your game and it says you can't get any more of this resource unless you spend money, I'm uninstalling your game. But if you give me an ad that I can tap, that every time I tap it, I watch a little ad and I get some resources, I will tap that ad all day. And it's all about how you approach it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Phobies does all three of those things, but
it does.
Two of them are bad. Two of them
I think two of them drive people away.
Yeah.
Right? The tier pack, like so many people quit because of the tier cap. It's just whether it's a good idea or a bad idea in terms of the finances, we have no idea how many whales Phobies has lost out on because of that cap.
Phobies,
because the average whale, from what I've read, takes about 1 month of play before they convert to spending at a high level. We'll never know how many people play Phobies for a day or two, say, I'm not doing this is stupid, and then stop. And they would have dropped $5,000 later in a month or two.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of those if wishes were fishes, we have no idea sort of scenarios, but there are a lot of people who get paid a lot of money to figure that stuff out because there is, for everything, not just Phobies, a lot of money being left on the table for exactly that reason, or very similar ones. It's Phobies at the end of the day, to me, feels kind of like split personality in that there are so many things that it wants to be chess. It's like, well, I am clearly chess with modified rules. But then it has all of these mid-2000s mobile era games, like mechanics, we'll say, that are just, they just don't fit. It doesn't make any sense. And it's frustrating looking at it. Every time that I think about this stuff, I get annoyed because, like, why are we doing this? Why I don't want to believe that this is the only way. Like lately, I've had multiple conversations with multiple devs about distribution models and different things, and admittedly, a lot of this was in the context of physical games, and I know a lot about the risks and things like that for the distribution of physical games and what will or will not fly in a game store or in a Walmart or in a Target or something like that. And I know some of the numbers for the logistics of like what it's going to cost to get these things from wherever they're manufactured, shipped to a warehouse, shipped to a store and into somebody's home. And then odds are what that person's going to do once they played it a few times, if they even play it, because there are people who just ultimately collect games. Like collecting games and playing games are two different hobbies is always the joke. But when it comes to Phobies,
PC gamers.
Yeah. But when it comes to something like Phobies, it's like, why are we doing the things the way we are? I can't believe that this is the only way. Now, it may be the only way now, because now that the decisions have been made, the game is launched, the amount of effort that it would take to change course on the economic model, like people complain about the leveling system, like you were saying, they can't rip it out. It's just not possible. It's baked into too many things in the game. It is never going to go away. So I don't know. I'm just kind of venting frustration there. This is where we hit the Festivus part of just airing grievances.
No, I agree. I like the game would be so much better without levels, but
would it? We might not have a game. Like that's the kind of what I'm getting at. Like we might not be here having this conversation if this game did not have levels.
You mean financially or because of fun?
Because of finances. Like the game might not have sold enough whatevers. I don't know how they would monetize it then.
I agree with you on that.
Which sucks.
I agree with you on that. you get psychologically, you need to keep the carrot out there for people to keep chasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it gives little moments of happiness between when you get new phobies, you know? You're
Yeah.
like, ooh, I got dupes for this guy, I've been wanting to use them, or ooh, my boss just hit this level.
Yep.
Cool. It gives the little dopamine rushes. I mean, from that perspective, I see why they did it, and I think I'm inclined to agree with you that we probably wouldn't have phobies if they didn't have a leveling system.
It is not possible for them to churn out Phobies the way card game companies like Magic the Gathering produces, say, a 300 card set, and they do that like 6 times a year. That is not possible for Phobies.
It's not.
Hell, we don't have 300 Phobies. Like, we don't have that many yet. It's not going to happen. So if we don't have leveling, like, what are they selling us?
Right.
And that if somebody has an answer, feel free to tell me in the comments, because like I would love to know, like, what are they doing that would make them be able to keep a live service game online and available? Because the answer people are going to give me is cosmetics, and that's not going to happen. And I don't think it ever could have.
Well, even just like you said, at this point, levels are so baked into the game, it's not even worth talking about what else could they do, because they can't do anything else. It's too late to do anything else.
Exactly.
You know?
That's why, like, the only way that the leveling system could ever, quote unquote, go away is if they had in-client events, and through those events, things are level 1. But I don't think they can ever do that because, full circle, they need to get you to want to play levels. And if this other mode was actually enticing enough to pull people regularly from the ladder, their entire economy goes up in smoke.
Yep. Have you ever played it's a mobile game. I think it's called Warhammer Tacticus or something like that?
Yes.
Does that have
Briefly, but
levels in
yes. I believe they did.
Okay.
But they also had like 8 like, dude, you log into that game, it's like, holy crap, there are so many currencies. Like that's one of my pet peeves, is like when the game has 8,000 currencies. I'm like, I don't care. I'm not playing your game. Like, that's my pirate software moment.
That's the other angle that I think they could take if they wanted to. You would have to the other thing you can sell is like Phobies mods and gear and stuff like that. You'd have to have a game where you could do something like open packs for a mod that gives boss an extra 5% fire damage. You know? It's things like that where you can give little.
You think there are balance complaints now?
Oh, I know. That's the thing. There's that. There's also like the frustration of dealing with that in matches, especially arena matches.
Yep.
But I think that's one thing they could have done instead of levels, is have modifying things, gear, talent trees.
I think that ends up just being it's levels, but more complicated is what it boils down to. Because there will be like an optimal boss mod to do.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, oh, I don't have the good one. They do. Shit, my guy's worse than theirs.
That's true. It might be the same, maybe even worse in practice.
I've seen that with other games, and it does end up like, it always sounds cool to be like, oh, you have these slots, and then you could make them do more damage or have more health or be faster. Like, I don't know what context that would be here, but like, you know, the usual stuff. And then inevitably it's like, well, this is the optimal one, and if you don't run this, because it's all just numbers at the end of the day, especially with the deterministic element here. Like, we know that this will do the thing.
The last mobile game I played had that issue where you could slot in the called emblems, and they powered up your guy in different ways. And for like 95% of the dudes you could play, a single emblem ended up being the most optimal choice.
Was it damage? Because it's pretty much always damage.
It was basically damage. It was armor reduction.
Yeah.
Enemy armor reduction.
So sunder. Yeah. There's always something like that, because it's like, especially in a PvP game, they can't hurt me if they're dead, so I might as well make them dead faster.
And what made it so good was it didn't help against tanks as much, but
Mm,
it was like an army simulation game. And
okay.
the typical way it goes is like ranged dudes have low armor. Well,
Mm.
because they have low armor, the emblem, when
Pushes
it
them
took off
negative.
like 200, huh?
It pushes it into the negative.
Basically, you could
Mm.
like get a plus 100% damage bonus on the ranged dudes, which meant that you could just focus on wiping out the back ranks and then beat down the tanks while
Right.
falling asleep, And that was just the dominant meta.
Yeah, I can see that. So
So yeah, good.
here's a question for you for suggestions. Would you want a rotating meta? Like, let's say Shove Shark and Sentinels got addressed, and then we settled into a stable meta that was, barring new additions. This is the new meta, just it was actually fun to play. Would you want that to change because they made regular balance updates for change for the sake of change? Or would you rather have it be like chess, where it's like, these are the things that are used, get good with them?
So I hate that kind of thing, but I also think
Mm,
it's actually dangerous in Phobies, and here's why. It can work in games that are deck based
mm,
because within the context of the card changes, what you're doing effectively is you're creating a new rediscovery period
yes.
where people find new synergies, which is very exciting, and you end up finding new combinations of cards that work really well together in ways you didn't expect. In Phobies, the existence of all Phobies is necessary to balance the game. We cannot have a Phobies meta where Erratic sucks. If Erratic sucks, then the game's just going to be awful to play for everyone because he is a necessary component to countering mechanical Phobies on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
You need him to be good enough. And I think that's like the same thing with all the Phobies in general. We need these tools to be good. If we lose these tools, I think the game becomes inherently imbalanced because once a counter is gone, it's okay. Here's an example. Someone in the Discord was saying, I was talking about sheeping gas, and I was saying, someone said, well, if you want to find a sheeping gas match, you got to look at like heebie-jeebies because no one plays sheeping gas in high ranks because he sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sheeping gas doesn't suck. Sheeping gas is amazing at countering Cerberus, Erratic, Bad Side Manners, Mildred. All those phobies aren't very strong in the meta. They're not strong in the meta partially because Sheeping Gas exists. So Sheeping Gas is out of the meta because it's so good at its job that the people don't want to risk playing the things that it counters because they don't want to deal with Sheeping Gas and other poison sources, right? So I think that Phobies works on this rock paper scissors system, and if you break rock, just obviously paper's going to be overpowered and everyone's going to be frustrated. I don't think it'll lead to fun. It isn't. It's not going to lead to fun discovery like deck based card games go through. It's
Mm-hmm.
just going to be poison sucks. Time to start spamming undead. Oh, electricity sucks. Time to start spamming mechs, and so on and so forth.
I think that's fair. The challenge with this is, I think it reinforces the idea that a lot of the game is designed around, Erratic you start with, but insert
Yep.
other thing. Like, you have to have this functional game element, whether it's electrical damage, it's a push, it's a pull, it's a flyer.
Yep.
Burrow doesn't really come up, or poison or disease or whatever. You have to have thing. And I still maintain that I think Phobies is balanced around the idea that you have access to, if not every phobie, virtually all of them.
Every tool, let's say.
Yeah. But even
Every
then,
tool
it's
type.
not like having Rambolina is dramatically different than having Slammerhead or
Yeah. Or Repeller.
or what? Or Repeller. Yeah,
Repeller.
exactly. And that's my point, is that I don't know, this is kind of digressing from our original topics, but I I don't know if that's true. It certainly seems as though the game is balanced that way. And if it is, it cycles back to the economic problems of no one can reasonably expect to get a full collection. And honestly, most players can probably still expect to not have a reasonable collection because of the amount of effort that has to be put in. I think most people who give up the game will end their Phobies career long before they have all of the quote unquote required tools to ever compete.
Before they have all of the commons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think
it's crazy to think about.
There are things that... So, first I want to say, they did a great job giving people a core package. It's very common in these games that what you start with is crap and you outgrow it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I have to reteach new players all the time is they come in and say, I don't have the good Phobies, I have the starter Phobies. I need the good Phobies so I can compete. How hard is that? And I have to tell them, look at my VIPs. My VIPs are Bowmangles, Gravedigger, these starter Phobies. This is my core team still to this day.
Yeah.
These guys are great. So shout out to the devs for getting that right. But they missed things. Things that players don't start with. First of all, you can start the game without a dimensional at all, which I think is
an oversight.
Bizarre.
When somebody told me that, I was taken aback.
You start the game without any way to deal with traps. And playing against trappers...
You're talking about just step on them.
Yeah, you just have to die. That's an oversight to me. Another big one is Firkin Leprechaun. I think he should just be a stress level phobie because I think this is my personal belief that we'll never know the truth of. If everyone got Firkin instead of Foul, no one ever would have complained about Boss. Everyone just would have brought Firkin out, shut down the AoE, and said, this is how you deal with Boss. But because this is a niche phobie that like 90% of the player base doesn't have access to, you don't know how to deal with Boss. And it's the same thing with like Phantom, Frosty. There's so many phobies that are really broken if they get their ability off. But if you're a Firkin owner, they suddenly become manageable. Not easy, but manageable. And if they would give Firkin away to everyone, I think a lot of people would feel less frustrated. The last one I think is Chevelle. They added this phobie that was supposed to solve the game's problems, but new players don't get this guy. And I'll tell you, like you're talking about phobies where if you don't have them, you can't compete. Yeah. That has to be the top one, right? Like if you don't have Chevelle, you're not playing competitive with any chance of winning.
I'd agree. And we talked about it when it first released, that you can decide whether you like the old game or the new game, but you can't deny that the game is different for having having Shove Shark in the game. It just is. There's no two ways about it. And I actually just had a thought while you were saying that. On the annual anniversary, they should just give everyone a phobie. Literally everyone in the game.
It's such a small thing with how many ultra rares there are. You could give everyone an ultra rare.
Give everyone Shove Shark this year. Give everyone Firkin this year. Or, I mean, it would be ideal to be an ultra rare, but like, and then for anybody who has it, you get like a Dreadful or something. You know, like they'd have to compensate people somehow because otherwise people would be pissed. But they should just do stuff like that for each release. Ideally, but at least annually.
It's a good idea. Or I was talking about the league progression rewards. Most games, the first time you hit a new league, you get a new unit to celebrate your accomplishment.
Yeah. You should definitely get something because there is no incentive. We didn't talk about this, but do you think that they should derank people beyond Sum of All Fears 1?
Oh, they need to. I mean, this is a thing that happens every month. All the people above 3,000 go to 3,000. Nothing happens to everyone else. Like clockwork. the Discord is flooded with complaints about matchmaking because suddenly they're fighting me and they're
Yeah.
fighting Hoploy. And a week ago, there was no chance of that happening, or a very, very slim chance. It just doesn't make sense to me. If people hate uneven matches, and we know this is true, people hate uneven matches unless they're the one who has the advantage. What's the reason to force all of the weaker players to get their asses kicked the first week of every new season?
So this was a problem in Hearthstone when it first launched. They used to derank everyone all the way back to the beginning. Like, this was very early on. Yeah. So it didn't matter if you were top rank legend. They had way less ranks back then. Now I logged in like last year or something, and I don't even know how many ranks there are. Infinite, I guess. But it used to be like, if you were top rank legend or you were in Sippy Cup League, you all got deranked at the beginning of the month to the same place. And it was a shit show for obvious reasons.
That's ridiculous.
They obviously changed that. So now, and it didn't take very long. What they did was they would derank you scaling, essentially. So it was like, we're not scaling, but you would derank X number of ranks below where you were. So people...
Was it 5? You go up 5 ranks?
I think it's 5, yeah.
Above? Yeah, that's what I recall when I played.
So
I used to play Hearthstone too.
They could do something like that here. I like the idea of having the floors and not being able to derank when I was playing more regularly, and this is across all games, just because I don't want to do the grind every season. And then once I fall behind one season, I'm never getting back up there because I'm not playing 8 billion games. And until I play 8 billion games to then get reasonable games, I'm playing a ridiculous game. It's like I now have to play 800 games to rank up because I haven't played for a month because of whatever reason. And 100% of those games are against people that I should not be playing. Both because of skill and because of like collection stuff. There's no real way to solve that.
And recall, when as a Hearthstone player, everyone wanted to get to rank 5 because that got you the free epic, right?
Yeah.
And the hardest rank was not rank 5. It was rank 6.
Yeah.
On that journey. Because that was the last gate to get to 5. Everyone's playing
the meta. All the tryhards are.
Everyone's trying their hardest. Then once you got to 5, because you couldn't derank, it's meme town, right?
Yep.
You could play whatever you want because you don't care about winning and losing anymore. So there's something to that idea.
Yeah,
not deranking.
Good.
No, that was it.
Well, I wonder if that is... I mean, you can derank out of this. And I mean, I guess you could at rank 5 as well. I think it was like once you cross the threshold, you were guaranteed the epic. I don't remember. But...
You couldn't go below 5.
Couldn't you, like, you couldn't fall back to 6 even if you went on like a 100-game losing streak? Was that it? It's been a long time.
I don't think it was possible once you hit 5. Every 5 ranks, you were locked in.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That was it. I know, like, Duelist did that, still does that as far as I know. Like, once you hit the next tier, you can't derank below that.
Right.
In that season, anyway.
I'm not sure what Duelist is doing with that now. I got too frustrated and quit before I really... I think I quit at like around rank 10. I was like...
I mean, to be honest, like Duelist was one of the ones I was thinking of where it's... I haven't played in forever. If I were to log in now, I'd have to start at 25, I think was their highest or lowest ranking, to get back to S rank, which is... It go for anybody unsure, it goes 25, 24, 23, etc., all the way to 1. After 1, it's then S rank after that, I think. To do that probably requires hundreds of games. Initially, probably not that many, but once you start hitting people that know what they're doing and have a collection, you're not going to steamroll people. It's the same thing for Phobies, where, like, if I were to derank all the way back to heebie-jeebies, will I accelerate up very quickly? Yeah, but eventually I'm going to hit... maybe if everybody's bunched together, I won't necessarily hit opponents that are of appropriate skill and collection level, and I'll steamroll people and get back into some of fears. But I don't want to do the gold pack thing of playing 200 games to get back to where I belong, quote unquote, to play a reasonable game.
I have mixed feelings about it because if you haven't played for a while, you might be really rusty and suck, and so it might be better for you to start off with easier matches to like wean into things, is my thought.
There are systems that can get around it. Like other games will do it with placement matches. Every season you start with 5 placement matches. It depends on the game how they do the system of figuring it out, like averaging the scores or whatever. I'm sure there's a calculation they could do where it's like, okay, you play 5 games. Do you know your ass from a hole in the ground? All right, well, we'll push you up a couple. Or no, you're getting your dick knocked in the dirt. We're going to drop you back down. And this is where you're going to start. And it could calculate based on your previous rank and your current stress level or whatever, which ultimately doesn't really matter if the matchmaking bands are going to get so wide after 3 minutes that you could get anybody anyway. So I don't know.
I like that placement match idea is an interesting way to possibly work around that. I don't know.
I mean, we're throwing wish lists together. Vendy-claus, rescue us.
I have to say, this patch has encouraged me.
Absolutely.
We know that, like Greg had said, there's a partnership, right, with the new community managers. I'm hoping that maybe this is like a good sign of them having an influence on the game in a positive direction, and we have more good things to come.
Yeah.
And acceleration is so spot on with something. It plugs such a hole so perfectly. I'm hoping they keep nailing it.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we will find out soon. Based on the quotes that are on screen that we started with, they are actively working on it, and I'm hoping that we get both in-game updates, out-of-game updates, as in more communication, more insight as to what the plan is, what we can look forward to, that sort of thing. There's a lot. It sounds crazy, or not crazy. It sounds negative to say there's a lot of things that Phobies could do to improve, but it's not intended that way where it's like, oh my God, this game sucks. Fix all the stuff and then it'll be okay. It's like, no, there's a lot of ways that there are other ideas from other games, from other things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just like, hey, that's a cool idea. Just add it in if possible.
They've got a cheat sheet.
Yeah. I mean, believe me, the Phobies is not the only one. We're doing this. I'm doing this with lots of other games where it's like, come on, it's not 1992 and nothing's been invented yet when it comes to some of these games. It's 2024. You got 30 years of experience when it comes, 30 plus years for card games. Just please, for the love of Christ, do this. Phobies, it's a little different, but there are things you can lean on historically. So
I agree.
But I think we beat this one to death, Karst. Any other last minute things you want to add in before we close up shop?
I'm impressed with both of us for making it through so much.
Yes.
You're very productive.
It definitely is. And I'm sure we could keep going. But let me know, chat, anybody out there, if you have any other ideas, let me know in the comments, that sort of thing. You know the deal. But I think that's going to do it for tonight. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And tune in next time for more Random Thoughts.
Have a good night, everyone.